Aloha everyone to another live digital kava session here on the Polynesian Eyes podcast. This is officially our last live from South Central Texas, from the
Oh,
great state of Texas and the beautiful city of San Antonio, the river city,
mm,
military city, home of the San Antonio Spurs and the spirit of the Alamo. We were able to visit the Riverwalk when Mr. Atearoa was here,
yeah.
and so it's going to be a sad relocation next week. But we're also excited to continue the adventure in the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Mr. Atearoa, how's your Friday for you? Closing out the week and getting
Ooh.
ready for the weekend.
Pretty good. Tua, New Zealand is very nice here in South Auckland, Manurewa to be specific. Beautiful day today. Can't complain. Getting ready for the cold weather
Mm,
coming pretty much next month. Um, it's so funny when I think of the cold weather. Cold weather. Most Tongans don't like it, except Xiaoxi Ilayu. I won't forget the comment he
yes,
made. He likes the cold weather, so he's probably excited that winter is
coming.
coming. So everything's going good here. Tua Friday. I usually work from home, so I'm just kind of cruising it on a Friday here in Aotearoa. So everything's going well, Tua. Excited for this live digital kava session on the Polynesian Eyes podcast for today.
No, that's awesome. Just a quick update. Some pretty exciting news on the activity we're getting on social media. I think we broke 900 subscribers as of today.
Yep.
So the march towards 1,000 subscribers on YouTube is exciting. We're heading towards 3,000 followers on
Mm.
TikTok. And after our last calculations, we are on pace for over 2 million views a year just
Oh,
on just on TikTok and YouTube. That does not include any of the other social media views. So we're pretty excited about for this little fakamuna to continue, and see where it
mm,
goes. So we
mm,
appreciate everyone's shares, likes, and comments because it goes a long way. Slick
yep.
Rick says, "Much love and respect to you and your father."
Malo Slick Rick.
Appreciate it, Slick Rick. Malo. Yes, we just released, I think a few weeks ago, an episode with Devita Fale, the founder of the Polynesian Eyes Foundation. He is
Mhm.
working on the next episode where he is going to focus on a lot of the words that are
Oh,
tied to Mayan and Inca words that we still use in our Polynesian language today. So that's
mm.
a little sneak peek to the next episode with Devita Fale, Slick Rick.
Tua, is that episode gonna come before the his trip to Tonga? I assume, right? Before the trip to Tonga, hopefully, because he'll be gone for a while overseas.
Correct, correct. So we're trying to get it before he heads out. So hopefully in the next couple weeks.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
As always,
Oh,
Wada
our PR
Bears,
guy, Malo, what a
Wada
bear.
Bears, the PR Mormon Housewives reality show is Fakamuna. The funny thing is, Wada Bears, according to them, they're breaking barriers and actually helping the LDS church. So
oh,
it's it's all about perspective. It's all about
oh,
perspective.
I think they're the true definition of the Mormonism progressiveness that's happening.
Ah, that is hilarious. So I'm gonna give a quick preview of the show today. So we got some interesting things. First couple things we're gonna do. We're gonna take a look at the popular run it straight and run it sport,
Mm,
right? That's a new sport. It's not a lot of times that a new sport gets started. So this is pretty cool. We'll look at the two versions of this. This is a sport started by Polynesians, um, and so we're gonna kind of dive into that a little bit. Next, we're gonna take a look at some individual Polynesians doing some exciting things, right? In the whether it's sports, art, or even designer clothes. We're just going to talk through that a little bit. Then we're going to get into some social media feedback on some of our episodes, specifically around our Maori brothers and sisters, and some of the commentary that's going on social media. We'll give some feedback on that and get some discussion there. Then we're going to end with two videos, one on the Maoriori, and then one of the suggestions from the comments on TikTok was we take a look at some of the Maori wars, the history of it, and what happened with what led up to the Waitangi.
Okay.
And the battles that happened after the fact. So that's pretty cool. Hey, my brother Jason Gomer there says, "What's up to a red and blue, the brotherhood, all day, all day."
Talk
all
about red
day.
and blue. Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
Hey, Jason, be careful. We're going to tomahawk chop you next year if you guys keep coming, man.
Jason, just tell these guys to stop firing their coaches. Right now, there's a little drama in the North Shore.
Wait, we SEC style down in Goku. 1 year, bad year, get a new coach. Man,
Red Raider for life. So that's what we're gonna start with here real quick. So let me see here. Let's bring up this one first. And this is a have you heard about it, Masi? I think you've heard about this show.
Yes, I did. I think it's the Run It Straight that I watched one episode. I had no idea that there's another one that's different from the Run It Straight. I thought it was just the same, but now I know that it's literally two different organizations or two different groups that are running it. So, I'm gonna learn some more in this episode about it.
Yeah. So the way I understand it, there's the Run It Straight that you saw, Masi. That's more by some Polynesian. I think they're Ha'amoa social media influencers, and that's more like community based, right? That's kind of with the community. They just have it at like public parks. They invite people. There's like a $5,000 prize for whoever wins that series. Then the other one's a little bit more organized. It has funding. I think one of the main investors, if you want to call it, is that Solomona, big guy who plays for the Storm, plays on the Kiwis rugby league. And so this is their competition. First one is the more professional, the more organized one. And they just had their championships. So this is a snippet about how that went.
Yesterday, we introduced you to Run It, the brutal new full contact Aussie sport that is basically football without any of the actual football. Last night, Run It held its first ever championship, and it was even more brutal than we may have expected.
8 of the nation's hardest hitters descended on Melbourne last night, ready to go head-to-head in the first ever Run It Championship.
Runner ready! Defender ready! 3, 2, 1, run it! And here we go first.
Round one, run one. Canberra's Curtis Malataisi
This
is down.
seems to be
So
the
judges call it.
heavyweight division.
Yeah.
From the black corner.
Then on to round 2. And at run 2, Melbourne's Troy Pulupaki is out cold and out of the competition.
Look, I've said it yesterday, and I'm going to say it again today. I'm really concerned about what we're seeing with these sort of events where the most violent aspects of our sports are being exploited for entertainment purposes.
That's why it's entertainment, man. That's the whole
And
point.
after 12 brutal hits, Brisbane's Jeremiah Semiosa was crowned Run It royalty.
Jeremiah Semiosa is your Run It champion. He walks away with the
First of its kind.
$20,000.
But before the night was over, one last
Is
special
that 12
guest
grand
clash
for it? Did they
between two
announce?
footy legends.
Yeah, 12 grand.
Okay, because
Hey.
I know
Go ahead.
that the that Run It Straight, whoever wins the first prize, like first place, it's about $5,000. So
So is it 5 grand just for that episode though, right? Or is it 5 grand for the whole thing?
just for that whole episode, because they go to different cities and they go to different public parks and they do the tournament there.
Okay. Hey, isn't this Fijian guy that used to play?
The winger,
Yeah,
what-
the big is that him?
Natolo or something?
Naholo.
Naholo. Yeah.
He played for the Highlanders. Otago? Highlanders,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah,
Oh,
for the Super
okay,
Rugby team
okay.
or Crusaders, maybe.
Maybe it's Crusade. I don't know. Okay, so maybe hey, he's doing a little exhibition.
Oh,
We'll see. We'll see.
side money.
Burgess and Nadolo, two
Yeah,
legends
Nadolo.
of the
That is
game, about to collide.
Oh, Burgess,
This
one of the
is
Burgess brothers.
frightening. Ooh, oh.
The Englishman, victorious.
I think big future in this sport with how we
No
can
wrap
grow it.
up.
But yeah,
No wrap up.
big future for running.
Oh, and joining us now is former Rabbitoh star George Burgess. George, it looked absolutely brutal. Half the audience could not even watch the screen. Why did you want to be involved in this?
Yeah, look,
It's
I think
exciting,
it's
man.
great. I think it's a great
Yeah.
concept. I always loved that part of the game, the kickoff carries and the collision. But I do see some flaws in it, as you can see in some of the footage. I think there's some improvements we can definitely make with making sure the competitors are prepared and ready to go, and they've got the right technique. So that's something that I'm really passionate about, coming on board and helping out run it. And I thought it was great for me to have a go myself and show them how it's done.
Yeah, I got to say, watching it was really obvious when the two of you went at it. You looked like people who knew what
That
you were
guy
doing
ain't gonna
and
be
were
running
trained.
straight.
And then when the other guys did it, it looked like just chaos. And
This guy's
anything
He'll
gonna
be
that
running
goes
postered.
on,
sight.
point there.
What do they call it in
Just the
NBA?
experience
You
of
get posterized. You know, you get dunked on. He's the one that you would posterize after the bump, right? And then you want to get that. Then you advertise it to come run it straight.
This guy's like, oh Yahweh, sign me up. I'll take on these guys. Because I don't think there's weight classes or anything. It's just straight up whoever
know-
wants to line up.
I know for the run it straight, they do by weight classes. So they have like a heavyweight, then they have a
okay.
light heavy. The run it
Okay,
straight
that's
guys,
good.
the social
That-
media influencers.
No, that will definitely help. That's helpful.
Mm.
This guy's not going to be in the heavyweights for sure.
doing it. That you've run at a lot of defensive lines in rugby league. You've been in a lot of defensive lines when people are running at you. What is actually scarier, that on a rugby league field or running at a 160 kilogram Fijian rugby player in that situation and run it?
Well, I mean, in a game, you're running into 3 or 4 guys from 25 meters away, so it's a little bit different. But yes, I've never tackled anyone as big as Nemani before, and I'm pretty sure he was about 170. So I think moving forward, we need to have strict weigh-ins because it's got to be regulated properly.
Now I've got 2 little boys at home, a 6 and a 3-year-old, so it's run it straight in the hallway every day. Have you? Your brothers are rugby league players. Have you run it straight with your brothers?
Oh yeah, definitely. We grew up in the back garden, wrestling and running at each other. So it's all fun and games, but you got to make sure that you're doing it right. And one thing that we're pretty passionate about at Run It is not it's not for kids really. It's an adult sport, and we don't want people trying to copy in the park or in the back garden.
George, do you think any of the other Burgess boys would compete?
I don't know. I think they're running scared a little bit after watching last night. I'll call them out though if they want to go.
In all seriousness, George, I mean, I'm a leaguey. I talk about rugby league all the time. I love it as a sport. But in that sport, and it seems to be across every code in the country at the moment, we're spending so much time getting dangerous knockouts out of the sport. At least we're trying to. So should we really be inventing new sports where they seem inevitable?
Hey, look, I think if we really manage it properly, I think it can be a great spectacle. It's such a theatre out there, and it was great to witness it firsthand. But I think we can really control it if we keep progressing. You know, the target area is here, and if we referee that properly, there's really a very small chance of players getting hurt, competitors getting hurt. But I think we're a long way from where we want to be with this venture, and it's just the beginning, but it's exciting.
Well, George, we appreciate your time and congratulations on last night. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
What's your initial thoughts, Mr. Atero?
It's giving me vibes of the. It's gonna give me vibes of the slap. You know that slap competition.
Yeah,
I think
power
it's being
slap
fun-
or something like that.
Power slap. So maybe it's starting off as that, and then it's to see where it goes from there. It could be like something like some other sports that started early. I think the UFC is what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
When it started kind of earlier. But right now, I see it as going into like that slapping championship right now, right? Until it
has
gets
that feel
until it
because it's a
yes,
one-on-one. You know,
one on one. So, but to me, I don't know. Yeah, you can manage by putting in maybe some more rules and stuff. But to be honest, it's the same thing with heavyweights with knockouts. People love to see
that's
somebody
why.
knocked out. That
Yeah,
I mean
that's the
that's
reality. That's the
and
reality.
and the more it's the same you can say this for American football, even rugby and rugby league. They're starting to take away a lot of the things that people used to like, that really high hitting and stuff, and that they're using that helmet to helmet contact a lot, and they flag people. But that's going to provide another opportunity for these kind of sports that people
Another
just want to
sport.
see, another sport for people to see high intense impact. And
Yeah,
there's an opportunity. So hey man, hopefully, like I said, man, a lot of the people, if you notice, the people who are participating in this run it and I'll run it straight, they're Polynesians. We love to hit, and physicality always tends to be on the Polynesian side. But that Burgess guy, unless you get some big boys from other ethnicities like that Burgess guy from England, they'll be fun to watch, man, around the world. But what you think,
yeah.
Dua?
No, that's exactly. I kind of going along with what you're saying when she was like, we're trying to take this contact stuff out of these other sports. Well, maybe that's exactly why this is catching on,
Yeah,
right? Is
yeah.
people just like the power slap. People are there because of the collision and that intensity. And so we all understand everything progresses, right?
Mm,
Just like rugby league and football, the more money gets involved, the higher the investment. It's
yeah.
natural progression to get more technical, more rules to try and protect the investment. But when you're coming up as a brand new sport, that's how you grow, is that intensity and that contact. Here's a couple comments. Pound for Pound Entertainment says,
Mm,
this news reminds me of when the UFC first came out and it was too violent. So they had to stop and restructure it to be what it is today.
yeah. Well,
That's kind of the
and I
same
kind of
thing.
yeah, kind of mentioned that what Pound for Pound was talking about with the UFC kind of thing, and like what you kind of mentioned too, when money's involved, and it's also good for the player. You're gonna improve your technique because you want to be good for the next year on the next round, because your body is you're only as good as your availability. So if you're good for you're gonna and a lot of that availability is people, the way you take care of your body, technique plays to all of that. So people will just refine it, like what you said too. When you're paying people to be your full-time sport, you're going to take care of your body like a full-time athlete. So it's just like what you said too, natural progression if this becomes a big thing. But for right now, I do see it like the slapping competition. I feel like that's kind of where it's
The
at the
stage
moment.
it's at. Yeah.
Yes.
Couple other interesting comments by Pound for Pound. He says, hopefully the Poly founder has the rights to it as an intellectual property. Like we mentioned, we're gonna go to, I think the content creator guys may have been first. I don't know. Pound for Pound. So we're gonna run through. There's two competitions.
Mm,
This is the more professional one that has more sponsorship. It's kind of controlled settings in commercial settings. The next one's a little more driven by the general populace, right? It's kind of like a grassroots. It's at public parks and so forth.
mm.
And he
I
says, I not colonize Asiana the Run It Challenge.
Is that the Burgess? Who do you mean, Polypin? Is that the Burgess? I assume. I mean,
Yeah,
that
I think he's
yeah.
just thinking anyone that's going to take it from him or whoever. That's interesting. I don't know who exactly started it.
Mm, mm.
So, with that being said, we're going to switch over to the more grassroots competition, and you'll see the difference, right? The other one we just saw, it's in like a commercial setting, everything's
Mm.
controlled. Then we're going to go to this one, and we're going to look at the difference here.
Good crowd, man. I think
Yeah,
this
no,
is the
that's
one
the
I've been
thing.
seeing.
That's the thing. This one has like bigger crowds, but I don't think anyone's paying. They're just out there to watch it. And you see a lot of kids. That's the thing that catches me, a lot of young kids. So I think this one has more momentum. The other one just has more opportunity to be scaled up, right? Scaled up because it's more professional, but kind of interesting. Same concept, just different approaches.
And then it just shows you the power of social media, man. Like I think that one too is they announce it maybe like not too long where they're gonna be. It's like
Mhm.
open invitation. You get there, and then they'll categorize you which weight you're gonna be in, and they just say, run it straight, and it's fun and it's pretty. I mean, that's a good crowd, man. I mean, that's a crowd bigger than like I've gone to
Super
uh
rugby game.
Super Rugby game. Yes, that's been bigger crowd than a Super Rugby game I've been to. I won't say the names of the team that I went, and it was like that one has a bigger crowd. It's also I went to like a high school rugby championship game. That game's that's about the same size. So I mean, man, that's pretty impressive, man. The crowd that they're pulling in for that run it straight. And
Well,
I've never heard of these guys. I've watched one episode. I think it was they were in Campbelltown. Um, I did see one, and I've never seen them before. So I was impressed with the amount of crowd that they brought in and the entertainment, man.
Yeah, Water Bears, Masi, you can read this one. Read this one.
All right, what a bears. I'm gonna start my own run it in LA with the blacks and Mexicans nonprofit organization to settle gang beef to prevent gang violence. Oh, water bears. I like
Hey,
it's very solution based water bears. That's why I like it. That's much better.
man.
It's better to have concussions than a dead body, water bear. So I agree with you. I agree with water bear's idea over there. Maria.
Marie. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. I think it's exciting. It's not all, every day you get to see a new sport, and I think this one has some real potential to turn into something, like you said, just like that power slap.
Yep.
This I think this has some feet. It has momentum. You see the
Yep.
crowds. See the two sides of these sports, or the two versions. The more grassroots shows that it has the support of the community and it has the fans, right? The more commercial one says, hey, look, it has sponsors, it has
Yep.
interested investors. So I think it has all the ingredients to potentially be a real sport that could materialize. And we'll just see kind of how it goes.
Yep. Yep. No, I agree. I'm excited to see where it goes because my first time to watch it was that Campbelltown one, and I think they're coming to Auckland, so it's picking up momentum. So obviously these guys are being invited outside because it looks like it's starting from Australia. Now it's coming to New Zealand, and who knows? Like what other bears? Maybe after New Zealand, go to California and then do one in LA, which would be hilarious. To see. Oh,
Maybe they should do when the NRL comes in between the games, have a run it straight.
well, and that's the thing, though. When I was looking at that, is it George Burgess and Natolo guy? You know,
Mhm.
if you play league, you're much better to have a better technique in running it straight and also tackling. So
Yeah.
I wasn't too surprised, even though Natolo's a big dude. I mean, that George, the what's that Burgess kid, because of his NRL background, the NRL guys have a great upstart, like just because technique and running wise, that's what they do all day, pretty much. Better
Interesting.
technique.
Yeah,
That's what I
because
just noticed.
rugby league,
That's what I just noticed.
players are much more comfortable in heavy contact, and the
Mm,
Burgess guy is a forward, right? Naholo is a wing, right? That's not necessarily a wing going to find contact, but
mm.
looks from here. Hey, well, pound for pound says it's coming to the USA. They haven't announced which state
Okay.
they're going to. Where do you think, Masi, if you had to do the legwork of which state, you going to LA, you going to Utah, where do you think you would go?
Ooh. To be honest, I'll probably go. I probably do. See, even maybe even Hawaii, I would probably do because
Ooh.
go Polynesians. Go where you think
Mm.
Polynesians come, because it seems to me, what I'm seeing, most of the 80, the one I saw in Campbelltown, all of them were Polynesians or mixed. So
Mm.
mixed Polynesian. So the only ones who are, like I said, who are pretty confident in running it straight as Polynesian people, just the physicality. That it's probably good to start maybe Hawaii. That's what I would say, Tua. Maybe Utah too. California, to me, California is so big. You know, it's so big. Maybe you can end it with California, but I would like to start it in Hawaii. That I think you'll get a bigger, bigger possibility to get more participants for a new country. That's just me.
Okay.
I'll go to the state of Hawaii.
My thoughts are two. If it's the run it straight, the YouTuber guys, the influencers, Hawaii. I think that's where you go because that kind of fits like the local
Yes.
vibe, the local field, that straight up, and really just knocking each other out. And the fact that it's not super commercial, I think the Hawaii kind of cultural background and the preference, I think that would do really well there. If it's the more commercialized, if I had to pick, I'd probably go to Utah. I'd probably go to Utah if I was the commercial one. And then if you were just lazy and wanted to do the easy button, California. Pick a Bay Area, probably the Bay Area because there's more Polynesians in the Bay Area, even though there's a ton in Southern California too. But I only say that just because obviously with the LDS background, we just know there's more LDS stakes in the Bay Area. So, but I know there's a handful of Polynesians in Southern California too. So,
so
that'll be interesting.
There'll be two spots I'll think to do it in Hawaii.
Where?
Kalihi. In Kalihi,
Kalihi. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm just saying, Kalihi. There's
have it at one of the parks near the projects, the government housing,
camp housing.
You get everybody over there.
You get everybody, and that's a raucous place over there. So you get a lot of following. You get a good turnout, in my opinion.
That's the thing. That's what I was going to say. If you do it there, it's going to be jam packed. There's going to be so many people there. That's a good point. So I think that's where's the other spot? Where's the other spot?
Ooh, the other spot probably thinking. I'm thinking somewhere in Nanakuli area, the west side.
The west side.
Around,
Waianae, Nanakuli area.
Yeah, Waianae, Nanakuli, around that area. Those are the two spots.
Max Holloway come out, right? Have Max Holloway come out to run it straight. I think that would be pretty cool.
He would. I can see him coming and showing up and being entertained because he loves knockouts too. So that'd be something. And who knows? He could be somebody that can maybe be the ambassador of the sport in the state of Hawaii. I mean, if he likes it, he's a people's champ. So they would like that.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing is like, this could go anywhere. You get someone in the US with a little money, get behind it. You never know where this could go, because you could get a lot of different athletes here in America interested in it. I mean, for Pete's sake, they're all showing up for some of these little local fights and competitions and stuff. I think you would always, whichever city you'd get a good group of people lining up to compete.
Yeah.
Maria. All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to transition to the next segment of the show. So this one, we're going to kind of take some look at some individuals who are doing some cool things, Polynesians across the world, just kind of checking out some of the cool work that they do. The first one we're going to start with is a New Zealand artist. And his name is Darcy Solia. Have you ever heard of him, Mr. Aotearoa? I never heard of him until
Solia.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Ha'amoa. I know some Solias, Ha'amoa things. Okay, no. I just know the Solia, but don't know this particular artist.
Okay. Let's get this. Oh, I'm clicking on the wrong screen. Let's get this one going. Kind of has some cool stuff.
You know, I do a lot of art that symbolizes my culture, but you'll realize that a lot of stuff that I do, there's a mixture of specific cultures within my work. You'll see a bit of Māori, Tongan, Fijian fused into one, one whole thing. I learned a lot about Maui over the last couple of years, but realizing that Maui's not only a Māori figure, but he's also a well-known figure from all over the islands of the Polynesian Rim, and that's why I do a lot of Māori, Tongan, and Fijian designs, because it incorporates the connection that we are one.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. He's got some cool stuff and a variety of stuff too.
My name is Darcy Sawyer. I was born and raised in Stokes Valley in Lower Hutt. I am the youngest of 5 children.
That in the Wellington area?
Brought up with
That's where Tualahi lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lower Hutt.
My dad left when I was about 2. I can't recall when he left, but my dad was always there for us after he left. So he was born in the village of Whalelupo in Samoa. My mum was the youngest out of all her siblings. She was born from a village called Safuku, or Safotu in Samoa, in Savaii. My mum is a truly devoted Catholic. Oh, both my parents are.
I like this one, and some of the fusion stuff he does is pretty cool.
Every day, drawing and art is something I enjoy doing. There are rules to doing art, but you can break the rules. And I think it's better if you break the rules, because you become more creative. So as a teacher, I'm not a person who tends to say, oh, you can't hold a pencil this way, or you can't hold it that way. For me, I don't think I have the right to say that, because if you were to teach kids to do one skill and everyone does it, it doesn't make them original. Everyone's doing the same thing, and it's kind of boring in a way. So just teaching them that, if you be more creative, if you create something different or something new. Without, if you want to gain ideas and build your ideas, you've got to have to go out and search for other artwork or information, whatever. So with my art, some of the things I've done is more based on my family, but it's also based on, parenting, based on war, based on stuff you see on the news. But yeah, going back to the family stuff, I do quite a lot.
I like this one.
Looking after children.
I like that one where it looks like death at the bottom and then life at the top.
There are kids that we have that who have got it hard in their lives, and you always look back at the parents and how, whether if you're going to have a kid, you've got to take that responsibility. I've got into doing painting that will have stories to tell, so a lot of them that I create now will have stories and will have meanings to my work.
That's pretty cool, man.
That's pretty cool, Dua. How did you come across this guy? Was it just through a social media or?
Just in my feed. Yeah, just popped up in the feed and watched it. And I thought, man, this is really cool stuff. I mean, the art is awesome. I really liked his philosophy, in recognizing that we're all one people. And, and just speaking about Maui and how it's recognized. Apparently his initial, it sounded like, it could be wrong, his initial impressions were Maui was a Maori concept. And then, as he's learning and growing, he's like, oh yeah, we have Maui all over Polynesia, and actually we're united, we're one people. And I really like that feedback. But it's kind of cool what he's doing. The thing I liked about his art was it was the realistic stuff was pretty good. Then he'd do some of the stuff where it looked like a little kid do it, but it has like context in the background, and I thought it just looked really cool. A lot of his stuff.
Yeah, and I do like some of his art because he's versatile. When I say he was versatile, he was doing the the ancient history of our Polynesian people designs. He was also doing contemporary. Like
Hmm.
looks like he was also doing current events when he, maybe some of the
The
social
wars. Yeah.
issues and wars and maybe the struggles that maybe our people or people in general are dealing with. So that's pretty cool. And his arts, his like his designs and pictures and everything was very cool though. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I never heard
Yeah.
of him, so now I know of him because you brought him up. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Darcy Solia, and like in the lower hut area, apparently in
Mm,
kind of like the Wellington area.
yes.
So that was pretty cool. Let's see who we got next. All right. Let's let's show this one. So this one is pretty cool. I think you've heard about her. She's kind of making the rounds on social media.
Mhm.
What have you heard about her, Muscle?
Yep. I have come across her. Same thing. Tua came on my feed. Um, from what I understand, she is Tongan, American Samoan descendant, Samoa descendant, and looks like a mix of some Uri Uri too, some black. So pretty cool. Apparently she's like a national champion in sprint. As a sprinter.
Yeah, state championship
So
in Florida.
Florida.
And that's
So
a speed state. Like that's
yes,
not like 100 meters in Utah or
yeah,
Montana, right? This is
yeah,
100 meters
Florida.
in Florida that's known for speed.
Yeah,
So this
like
is a big deal.
yeah. I think the speed states are like that: Texas, Louisiana, Florida, that Georgia. So
Yep.
that's pretty impressive.
California, the
California.
big sports states.
Yes, so pretty impressive. What's giving me vibes to her? Like, there's a possibility she can go to the Olympics if she's dominating at this level. So, hey, it's pretty
Yeah,
cool. It's pretty cool.
that is pretty cool. And like you're saying, if she doesn't make it on the US team, or if she wants to follow the trend of some of the other athletes and just head over to Tonga or Samoa and represent them, that'd be cool. But let's just watch the video
Okay.
of some of her sprints here. I think this is from the state championship.
Okay.
Cool to see her with her flags. The 100 and the 200 meter.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's a good gap. Look at that gap.
Yeah, yeah. The 100 was pretty good. Oh, Sukahema, I think is
Mm,
her last name.
mm.
And so that's pretty cool. I mean, this is never would have thought the sprinting, but what do you think about this comment, Mr. Atero?
Sprinting is definitely from her black side. I mean, who knows? It could be, but like if the Sika Hema, I'm just putting it. I don't know the background of this young lady, but from what I'm seeing is Sika Hema sounds like a Vava'u from Tonga. Maybe the mom is maybe mixed Ha'amoa Uri Uri. So hey, unless the black is the thing, but most of her genetic makeup sounds more Polynesian than Uri Uri. But I could be wrong. Just saying, maybe her black side that 25% is the speed side, but UTOL, could be. But I'm just saying that it's pretty impressive, pretty impressive that she's dominating the women's sprint, and more, and some of the social issues America is going through, not in America but Western world. Hey, that's why all of us need to make sure that women's sports is only for women, so these women can thrive, because there's definitely a battle with people saying that there's no gender and you can participate in these
Yeah.
sports. So that's the thing there. But what do you think, Dua? Is it
Yeah.
the
I mean,
Uri side, or what do you think?
well, that seems to be the most obvious answer,
Mm,
right? Just because we typically see. But I will say, Sikahema, there's some athletes like Vai Sikahema, NFL speed, right?
NFL speed, yeah.
So that there's that, and then there's some decent athletes in rugby and sevens and stuff. I think some of the big things, especially in sprinting, because it's not a talent or a skill set that you have coaches around the world who know it. It's like you have to develop a history of knowing how to sprint.
Mm,
That's why Jamaica does really well. Obviously, they have the Udiudis, but also it's just they have a history of understanding that science. And then
mm,
obviously America, it's just the amount of money that gets
yeah.
poured into sports. It's really hard. So I guess my question would be, Masi, let's ask this, since everybody's kind of saying this. If we took her and she grows up in Tonga or American Samoa, it looks like the
Mhm.
flag she's carrying is American Samoa, would she be the sprinter that she is now?
Ooh. I think maybe yes. There's a possibility. Tua, because of I'm just thinking of the intercollegiate sports in Tonga. There's a possibility that maybe she could have that develop. But to me, it's if it's a coaching thing that's kind of made her do well, or sometimes people are just built for speed, and she could have just dominated and probably got a scholarship probably from some of the islands if she was, it was in her DNA as a sprinter.
Mhm.
That's just me. That'll be interesting to her, but I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. Possibly yes. Possibly yes. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I'm not as convinced. I think she would be a fast athlete. She should be fast, but I don't think she'd be able to hit the times because I think she's in Florida. That's a state that's known for sprinters, so she has tremendous coaching probably, and then you add the talent to it. It goes a long way. And so
Okay.
I don't doubt the raw talent, but it takes money and know-how to really develop that talent to be world class. And I
Mm,
think, I mean, that's why America is so great at so many things. It's yes, you have the raw talent pool, but then you have the financial means to develop that talent. If you don't
mm,
have the financial means to develop it, then it takes someone to just see the raw talent and say, if I take that raw talent and I put it with the resources and the right coaching, kind of like a Jordan Mailata, right? Jordan
mm,
Mailata is, before he gets the coaching, before he gets the sports science behind him, he's not a quote unquote top notch left tackle. But if you take him and put him with the money and the knowledge, yeah, he becomes what he is now. But I mean, she'll still be an athlete in my opinion. But
mm,
yeah,
mm, mm. Interesting. Yeah, because that's the thing. I think. I think because running is such a global, it's everything do. The American football is a very specific talent that you can develop. That's what I'm thinking, to. But the running, to me, I think I mean, there is a case, and there's a reason why, in the Olympics, there's development plays a big deal. Jamaica, like you mentioned, they probably identify talent at an early stage and they start
and they have the
developing.
competitions to develop that.
Mm, mm,
Right? They have all the sprinting and all the coaching and the infrastructure behind it. I mean, let's just use another sport, boxing. It's just
mm,
like boxing. We have a lot of raw talent. That's why it's kind of exciting to see someone like David Tua go back to Ha'amoa, because you
mm,
have to have that know-how, right?
mm,
That know-how is really important. You take that know-how, then you can hopefully elevate that talent locally. And then the next step is, then you probably have to go to America, right? To get access to the resources and into the competition level. So Yeah.
Because yeah, no, you're right. It's like a mix of both. Because there's some raw physical traits that you can't get, but you need the right that it kind of goes two and two, right? Like how do
Exactly.
you how do you teach somebody who has just the physically built mad body size for a specific sport, right? And then it's just managing that with coaching and developing that. So yeah,
No, I agree 100%. You need all of those pieces. You need the raw talent, you need the sports science, right? And then you also need the resources to develop the know-how and to develop that speed. And whenever you're missing one of those three, you have to be extraordinary in the other two to catch notice or to make up for the difference.
Mm,
So yeah.
mm.
So interesting. That
Interesting.
was cool. That was cool to
That was.
see her be successful in that arena. This next one is another youngster that's kind of doing some cool stuff. This is
Oh, he's part of the trend with the Moana
the
Pacifica
Moana
dog skating.
Pacifica. So obviously the big superstar is Artie, right? You can't get
Yes,
around. He's the
he's the big name.
superstar. He's the franchise player. But
Yep.
there's some interesting other young Polynesians in the mix, and this guy is one of them. And he kind of took a not an unorthodox path to where he is now. So we'll listen in.
Hey, Karen Damufalo, outside back, Moana Pacifica.
Samoa Falau! This kid's special!
Weaving and spinning and cutting the Hurricanes apart!
Samoa Falau put down! Keep an eye on this kid. He is something else.
Scary thing is that we're only just getting started with Kai. He's got all the attributes of a modern day winger. Being a part of his growth is exciting.
Now a chance to open them up, and Taufui Falau is in. And he's a brilliant young player.
So it started off with me coming out of Marlborough Boys College. Once I left school, I went through the Tonga Sevens pathway.
That's not a New Zealand accent. Is he an Aussie?
I didn't even understand what he said. Old Boys College. I didn't even get the
Yeah.
name of the school. I have no idea where that is.
Yeah. But he doesn't sound like a New Zealander.
Oh, does he sound like an Australian guy?
He sounds maybe, but not fully Australian, but he sounds more Australian. I mean, we'll listen, but he didn't sound like a Kiwi to me.
Adam Taumoi Falau, the deadly Tongan strike threat. He is a flying machine.
And then through the Tonga Sevens pathway, I got asked if I want to go play for the Kalitahi, the 15 side. So I said yes, and that was the Rugby
It's
World Cup.
Australian. Gotta be Australian.
Taumoi Falau! World Cup debut.
Probably the most special moment in my career. And then from there, was selected to go to Moana Pacifica.
Look at that crowd.
What I love about the Moana Pacifica is just their culture, their family. We all come from different backgrounds, but when we're here, we're all islanders and we're all just having fun and we're enjoying with the poly flavour. There's a massive buy-in this year. We've got some good players in key position. We just want to be playing our very best footy. If that's making the top six, winning the competition, that's what we want to do, and we just want to do it to the best of our ability.
Taumoi Falau with his pace is going to win the race! Pacific Pride to the fore!
Just taking it day by day, week by week.
He goes through! Oh, wow! And a famous victory here in Christchurch. For the first time ever, Moana Pacifica have beaten the Crusaders.
I think we're just looking to light it up. Not looking too far ahead, but we've got a big goal in mind.
You doing what you love?
Love it, man. Want to change it. Best job in the world.
Maria,
Hey.
any thoughts, Mr. Aotearoa?
No, I did hear of him, especially I think I did see him in a couple of the sevens, playing for Tonga, and then I knew he was pretty much drafted from the sevens to the Ikaretai 15. So I did hear of him there in the World Cup. He did play. So, I'm glad that he is playing Super Rugby. Still, that's one thing that you can do as an athlete, have a full-time job, being a professional athlete. So it's pretty cool. And he's loving it. And then now he's on a good trend with the Moana Pacifica, and hopefully, he bigger and better things from here on out. So, wish him the best, and hopefully Ikaretahi can do well if he decides to still come to, keeps playing for Ikaretahi, man, because he's definitely an up and coming talent. What do you think, Dua?
Yeah, it's really exciting. Obviously, when you look at that Moana Pacifica team, like we mentioned, Artie is the foundational piece for that. But I think a lot of the excitement is Artie is bringing the eyeballs to the team, the talent, and helping them win. But then there's all these little cool little side stories, right? Like him, you have the Pellegrini guy. Like these are a bunch of guys that it seemed like Super Rugby wasn't taking seriously. None of the major clubs were taking seriously. They even said Artie Savea coming to Moana Pacifica was probably a mistake for his career. And it's almost like a reality show, right? Bringing all these guys, the excitement. I think we mentioned this a little bit on our last live. The energy at the Moana Pacifica games that's like way higher than any other Super Rugby team out there.
Yeah, the best so far.
And then what's crazy is even when they go visit other teams, the kids aren't running to the players in their home field; they're running to Artie Savea, right? Like it's just kind of interesting that this thing that's developing, and I look at these young athletes that are coming up, and then when you bring in the run it challenge kind of concept behind it, and you see the excitement in that, it's just kind of like, this is a cool like tsunami of Polynesian influence and excitement that's happening. And it's exciting to see this new talent coming up because his tries have been like leaping into the air, juking, chip and chase. And it's against like guys like Jordy, what's the fly half and the fullback for the All Blacks?
The Barrett
brothers, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So he's not doing these skillful things against some scrubs. He's doing it against the best in the world. And so it's kind of cool to see that. It was kind of exciting to see this talent.
Nice.
Sweet. Let's go to what's going on here? What is going on here? We are going to mute this for a second so I can switch to the next screen. This one should be a well-recognized individual. This is Jai Opetaya, probably one of the most exciting boxers
Is he undisputed?
in the world.
Is he undisputed for his the cruiserweight? Is he undisputed?
I don't think he's quite there yet. I still think he's trying to get undisputed, and then
go heavyweight.
The rumor is try and get Usyk to come down.
Oh, I thought he was going to go up.
Well, he is. He will go up, but Jai said, once I go up, I'm never coming back down. So that's why he's saying, hey, Usyk, if you want to, because Usyk said he's going to come back down. Usyk said he's looking to come back down to cruiser. So that's why Jai's like, hey, if you want to come down, I'll meet you here at the cruiserweight, because he doesn't want to go up to heavy and then Usyk go down and then Usyk say, come down and fight.
Okay, now I don't see Usyk going back down, to be honest. I don't see Usyk
You
going
think
back
he's,
down.
because that's what he said. You think he's just playing games?
I think he's just, I mean,
who knows?
He's been dominating the heavyweight. You could say Usyk has been dominating. I just don't know.
Absolutely.
I don't know why you would go, because right now there's more competition for him in heavyweight. You got Joseph Parker, you get Justice Huni, like we kind of mentioned earlier. He's kind of, or in the previous, maybe I don't know if it's in the previous episodes or this just us talking, but Justice Huni, he's preparing to fight some high profile fighters now. I think there's a lot more variety fighters in heavyweight. Cruiserweight, there's a few, but I mean, I'm just thinking of profiting for these guys to get bigger profit. I would think it's in heavyweight. So I'm surprised that Usyk did say that. that he's gonna go back down. I just think there's a lot more financial opportunity in the heavyweight. So
That seems to make sense. I think I agree with you. Maybe he's just playing mind games, trying to tell people to line up or make them think they don't have to worry about him in the heavyweight. Interesting. But it'll also be interesting if Opetaya goes up to heavyweight and Usyk's still there, right?
Make it happen, man.
Make it
especially if he's undisputed for the cruiserweight. He's already conquered. He's the king of the mountain. He goes to heavyweight. I mean, that's already you can advertise that and make it a big fight. If Usyk's still champion.
Still there.
Is Usyk announced he's gonna fight Dubois or anything?
Yeah,
Has that been?
that's the next fight. So supposedly, this is the other exciting thing. Supposedly, whoever wins the Usyk Dubois is supposed to fight Parker, which is pretty exciting.
Let's go, man.
Yeah,
let's go.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, because I think we can all agree that that Udi guy from London pretty much dodged Parker.
Oh yeah,
that last minute so that he can have he
made a business decision to get more money.
Fight. Yes.
And it looks like he made not just a business decision, but a lucky decision, because I think whoever was going to step in the ring that night with Parker was going to get knocked out.
Yeah, I agree.
Parker was ready. He looked strong. He looked fast. I was like, it didn't matter who was coming in that ring. They were going to get chopped down.
Yep.
So sweet. Let's see this. It looks like Jai was just visiting the motherland in Ha'amoa.
Oh, I'm not hearing any sound, Dua.
Let's thank you.
Just on a side note too, man, that's one thing I really like about Jai Opetaya and Joseph Parker. They've done many trips like
in their prime
careers, in their prime to Ha'amoa, which is pretty cool. And it's a good example for both of these guys mostly kind of grew up overseas, but it's like I said, they have a strong connection to their heritage and their culture. So it's a good example for Polynesians throughout the world when you're doing well and stuff. Do these little inter breaks when you have in your career to the islands and stuff, and do some videos like this and just kind of stay connected, which I think is pretty cool and it's a good example to us. That's just from my view.
100%. Stay connected, stay rooted, and I think also inspires the next generation, because these kids on the island see Jai and Joseph Parker, and then you see someone like David Tua living on the island. They're like, you know what? I can make this happen. I can be a world champion.
I'm half Samoan, half Australian.
Oh, he's half.
My grandfather's from Tuwhiopa and my nana's from London.
Okay.
It's a part of who I am. It's important to me, and I got to grow up, sort of introduced to both type of cultures. Oh, country's not big,
which culture? What did he say he's from? What's the?
He just said he's Ha'amoa and half Australian, so maybe Palangi.
Palangi. Okay, gotcha.
I'm assuming when you say half Australian, half Samoan, so
it's safe to say Palangi. And then if it's not Palangi, it's Aboriginal.
Some Apple.
Yeah.
Okay.
People know it, but they don't know it. Probably, it's rare for people from our neck of the woods to sort of make it on those world stages. It's special, man. It's special to be up there on the world stage and fly the flag, and then be able to come here and do things here, and
that is cool.
To be at the forefront of the representing our people's special.
Hey, he must like eating limu. I see limu tatted on his shoulder.
Tattooed.
I like limu too.
It's good to be back here in beautiful Samoa. We're very grateful to be able to do these things for the kids. So
this is cool.
It's one of our goals to sort of create these pathways. We're here to develop the sport here and help out where we can. It's more than just the gear. It's not about the donations, really. It's more about the time and effort to be here and show them that we actually do care. You know, like we want them to do well. So, you know, the donations is the easy part.
Drills that we're teaching the kids at the moment is just basic fundamental stuff. Taking it back to, again, fundamentals from the ground upwards. So kids are enjoying it. I'm enjoying it.
Awesome.
Been good.
Yeah.
I'm grateful
Hey,
and
there's
thankful
to Terminator. There we go.
Jai's father and Jai for giving up their time, valuable time to, you know, to give back to these young kids. So, you know, it's just amazing, just absolutely amazing.
What's he doing here? What are you doing here? Yeah. Mate, having David Tour there with us training the kids, it's amazing. Like, he's one of the Samoan icons of sports. And to have him here just teaching, hanging out with the kids and hanging out with us. And,
that is a big deal.
It's a complete mind-blowing. It's unreal. Jai's a big kid himself, so he enjoys hanging around with the kids and seeing them, you know, expand further and, you know, get excited. And yeah, I think he likes it. We love it.
I just grew up in the sport, you know. It was honestly like a family business. You know, it just got passed down to me and I can't remember doing anything else.
My granddad done it. My dad done it. I done it. And now we've passed it on to Jai. So Jai's a fourth generation.
My first fight was a kickboxing fight when I was 8 years old. And yeah, man, I was 8 years old and I was a big kid, you know, a big chubby kid. So I was fighting, there's a weight classes, so I was fighting older kids. And man, I remember being so scared walking into the first fight, man.
Yeah, he didn't want to be there. He was 8 years old.
Nowhere to run.
We went to a fight night, kickboxing, and well, I was wrapping his hands. He was crying, and then when he went in, he bashed the kid, and beat him up, and won. And then ever since that day, I think he's seen something after that.
You know, after the fight, I was good, and you know, the fear was all built up in my head. So it was a good learning curve.
To watch it all progress to where we are today, amazing.
Yeah, you know, my dad's been my coach since I was a little kid, but it's not just my dad, it's my whole family that have made sacrifices for this. You know, my mum working all the time, you know, paying for our petrol to get the sparring, you know, like, because when you're chasing a goal, man, it gets hard. You know, you're not getting paid and stuff, you got to make sacrifice. So, you know, my dad done his job in the gym and my mum done her job, you know, to help us all move forward, look after the house. So, you know, everyone's made sacrifices for this journey.
Importance for us to come back is just to share our journey with everybody. I think, like Jai says, we've come from nothing with like everybody else, and yeah, it's just a lot of hard work, but you just got to put in the hard work.
Work hard and stay focused. I'm going to push it on. You know, without boxing, I don't know what my life would be. You know, it's kept me on track, so that's what I'm trying to do with these kids as well, is give them a goal and sort of keep them out of trouble and give them a purpose. My best advice would just be stay ready. Whether it's anything like a test or, you know, education or anything like that. If you get thrown in the deep end too quick, you're going to fail. So you need to keep preparing, keep sharpening the tools.
Maria.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
Any thoughts? Any thoughts?
No, it's pretty cool. And you know what I've noticed too? You know, most boxers, they really come from really tough backgrounds. I'm thinking like the guys like Mike Tyson,
Mhm.
Mayweather, you know, Fagaofa, the way grew up, the family built up. But you know, I've noticed like, especially the two recent ones, Joseph Parker brought up in a nice, you know, good home. You know, Angalerde, he's a nice guy just to be around with, normal dude. Now Opetaya, look, going with his dad. You know, it's good. He's well-rounded kid. I was like, it's good to see these fighters come. You know, it just shows you the good quality upbringing too that these two fighters, especially you know when I'm referring to these two fighters, Opetaya and Joseph Parker, because they're kind of the pinnacle at the moment. They're at the top. You know, Justice Huni's coming, and I've seen him with looks like he's come from a good solid family home because a lot of the boxers, you know, of the past, even
Had no
Pacquiao,
other option. Yeah.
even Pacquiao came from a very, you know, tough background. You know, family were not together, but hey, this is a good example. Like, there's so many examples that's good. Going back to your heritage country, stay connected. You know, not only that, the background that these fighters are doing well looks like having a father presence. The family is, you know, I'm sure they
Yeah.
had their own struggles, but look, they've helped him get them through here. You
They
know,
had the whole team.
they have the whole theme, man, and it's a good example for the our Polynesian people everywhere to, you know, if you're a father at the moment with young kids, or this is a good example of how you wanna try to live your life to try to help and your kids and set good examples. It takes a lot of hard work, not only hard work to develop the skills and do well in the sport that you want to pursue, but also the social aspect of the family. That because that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work too to keep the family together. So it takes both. You know, the parent side to keep the family together, and then you pursuing the sport and developing that. So good example, Dua, from all aspects from what I see. But I don't know. That's one thing I just noticed. I don't know if
Yeah.
you had any addition or something different, Dua.
No, my favorite thing about Parker and Opetaya is, like you were saying, a lot of these athletes that come up and they talk about it's about the money and the fame,
Mm.
and you know, and it's about building up themselves. I really like, especially Jai. He always talks about, this is about my family, right? I'm
Mm.
not the only one who sacrificed here. But the temptation is when you get like especially a single sport athlete, but even on team sports, the temptation is, oh, I did all this, I did all that. And I love how, I think he was asked in a interview before a fight where they're like, after he won, actually, where it's like, how does it feel to actually make it? He's like, we haven't made it, man. I'm saying, I'm not here for me. I'm here to make sure one day, hopefully, my parents don't have to work anymore. You know what I mean? And that's his vision. It's not singular to himself and what he wants to achieve. And like you were saying, the stability that his family background will give him, it increases his chances that the success won't destroy him. Because that's the one thing, right? Coming from that fractured background, it motivates you to achieve the winning, the money, and so forth. But sometimes when you get there, it just destroys you, right? Because you don't have the stability and the right people around you. When you try to do it on your own, or you don't have that stability, you attract people who will mislead you. They're just there because you have the money and the fame and the influence, and they're willing to sacrifice your well-being to have access to your fame and to your money. But when you come up with your family, the family then becomes your protection and protects you from that wealth and that fame, because you have your father, your mother, your close-knit family who are more likely to tell you, hey, Jai, I think this is a bad idea, right? When in the other scenario, and we see a lot of major sports athletes get this, you get the yes men and women around them, and all of a sudden everything they say is always the greatest idea, always the thing, even though people look at it and like, no, that's not good for you. You shouldn't do that. You don't care. They'll tell you, yeah, that's a great idea, even with the worst idea in the world to do, just so that you give them what they want. So yeah.
Very
But-
good. Very good point.
Sweet. Let's see what's next here. This one is kind of interesting. This one is not a sports athlete. This one is a little unique. And this is a clothing designer, William Mahe. And I thought this was pretty cool. You see that? What does that look like, Masi?
Does that look like the bandana leaves?
Doesn't that look like
together?
it?
Yeah.
Doesn't that look like it?
Yeah.
Guess what?
It
It
looks like-
isn't. And we'll check it out. Watch. He's going to explain. Like, to me, that's the first thing I thought. It's like, man, that's not going to be comfortable, right? If you try to wear that, you're going to have to wear something underneath to protect because it'll scratch you and it's hard. But look at what this pretty creative dude does.
When they look at what I made. So this is a corset. And on top, I took this satin fabric, I cut it into strips, and then I wove it to look like a basket or woven mat. And then I added these beads across the top. I did not buy it like this. I had to make everything you're looking at.
Isn't that pretty cool?
They're confused.
Very cool.
I mean, look at how we just
That is
talked about
creativity.
creating a new sport, right? With the Run It. We're talking about all these young athletes being successful in sports. And then we're going to start to see Polynesians also get into the fashion and the designing of clothes. And it's interesting, man. Like this, it's cool to see our people going into so many different parts of the culture and like flourishing. Like I see something like that and I look at this individual and I'm like, dude, you keep that up, man. You may become something pretty cool down the road, you know? And it's not only just a cool design, because you don't see that anywhere, but it's promoting the culture. This is to me this whole thing of colonization and freaking out about decolonizing. I was like, guys, calm down. Yes, there were mistakes made. What's more important? Take the good and the opportunities in front of you and figure out how to make it work for you. Right? Figure out how to make your environment, your circumstances to work for you. Because I promise you, when our ancestors were traveling thousands and thousands of miles, they weren't sitting there crying about oppression and colonization. They were like, what have we learned from our ancestors that we can apply to the challenges in front of us? And what's the new stuff that we've learned to improve what we've been given? That's not to say that we're putting down what our ancestors gave us. They improved on what they got and then gave it to us, and it's our job to improve upon it and give it to the next generation, rather than this, oh my gosh, I was colonized and I need to decolonize myself. No, go and do something like this young man, right? Take this new palangi cloth material. How do you infuse it with our culture and create something new and exciting? And I thought that was pretty cool, which is why I wanted to include it. Not just the sports and stuff like that, but even this type of creativity.
This is a different kind of arena hetua that's kind of this fashion design, which is a very lucrative
if you figure this out, man. Yeah,
I mean, a lot of I'm just thinking like a lot of the kind of the billionaires that's kind of coming up, they're not. I think Rihanna is another one. Like she was doing the singing, but she only became a billionaire when she was able to do like clothing, clothing stuff. And once you get to that arena, like there's a lot of financial opportunity. So give props to this, Polynesian brother over here that's trying to infuse. It's almost like that fusion Polynesian flavor in this arena here. So it's pretty cool. And hey, all you can do is just try, and then when you crack it, man, that's good for you and your entire Kaingan family that's behind you. So awesome stuff.
100%. So, with that being said, that completes that segment of the show. I've seen a lot of comments going on Facebook and especially on YouTube. Actually, one of the comments that brought up was talking about colonization and Maori stuff. Believe it or not, that's where we're heading in the show.
Okay.
So, what we're going to do next is Tease here has a comment for you, Mr. Atero.
Oh, Tease, Kataki. It's just some soda palangi kaba tonight from Mr. Aotearoa. Today, Kataki inu kaba palangi pe Aotearoa pooni. It's just Pepsi. He going go gay malo ya si mamonga Tease. So inu sota pe.
T says, "Talai mo oni." Don't worry, we're not going to tell anyone. We're not going to tell anyone.
Malo Tease.
Anyways, what? That's funny. That's funny. What we're going to go to next. So I'll give some context to the viewers. We always appreciate when people take our content and share it online. Right? It exposes the podcast to new audiences. Right? So this one's kind of interesting. This is content that Brown Excellence or OS Excellence shared. And it says here, just in the description, our brothers over in the Northern Hemisphere comment on Maori who neglect the Christian faith and choose their cultural beliefs to be their main source for spirituality. The conversation sparks up after a video posted by Kayla Marie Edwards. That's the Maori girl, right? We watched a video of her where she felt attacked and minimized as a quote unquote not being Maori because she's a Christian and has that faith. Gets the community talking. So we'll watch the video. Okay. It's been chopped up, and then we'll go through. I think just skim through some of the comments. And then just some general responses. Is that good with you, Mr. Aotearoa?
Very good to me.
All right. The Maoris are one of the few cultures that we have witnesses or accounts of the early Maoris having prophecies of Christianity coming. Basically saying there's a new religion coming, and that's the religion we need to embrace. So it was quite shocking to me when you hear people like this who say, you're not a real Maori, you've been colonized because she's Christian. Basically what they're saying is because Christianity was introduced from Westerners, then therefore you've been colonized. So the basic idea is this: anything from the West is bad. Education's bad, cell phone bad, TV,
don't wear any clothes.
Don't do any of those things. You better be living off the land. The problem is there aren't any more real Maoris, and if there is, they ain't part of the discussion. That was a funny comment. The English language is already colonized. Where do you draw the line, right? Like that's the problem with the thinking.
They're speaking from a brainwashed, colonized point of view, because they don't understand where they come from. And that's why when Maoris get offended and say that they're not Pacific Islanders, I was like, last time I checked, Aotearoa is an island in the Pacific, my friend. And if you look where your ancestry came from, you came from the other Polynesian islands, my friend. The fact that you're offended when you say you're a Pacific Islander and you don't understand where you come from, that in itself is telling you something about that point of view. This point of view that says that if you're Christian, then you're not Maori, that's like, these are people who don't understand where they come from. Like, they're really colonized in the mind.
Interesting. So I really couldn't tell Mussy if from Brown Excellence, if he was against our perspective, for our perspective, or not. Like you could watch the edit and I couldn't make up my mind. It's like, well, I can see certain areas where maybe it was misrepresentative in a negative way, but it also wasn't overly negative either. So and then his description wasn't necessarily overly supportive or negative to the discussion. Did you have any feelings on whether Brown Excellence was leaning towards one side or the other, or was just trying to create content for conversation?
I think that's the latter to it, like what you mentioned. It's to create content for the conversation because looks like it is a hot topic. From what you kind of mentioned earlier, this was just relatively new that he's kind of chopped it up and
Within the last 24 hours.
Yeah, ongoing discussion. So hey,
Look
that's
at look at the comments. In less than a day, a full day, 292 comments.
Yeah. See, and that's the thing. It's a good conversation to have. We did talk about the stats just here in New Zealand. That majority of the population here in New Zealand is pretty much they don't
Atheist.
identify with any faith. Yeah, like no faith at all. And we're talking about 65% of the population of New Zealand, which is about just a little bit over 5 million. And it's just depending when you grew up. If you grew up in a community of non Polynesian, maybe including the 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 whole Polynesian, you would think, because Polynesian communities is what's really driving the Christian faith in this country, pretty much. And if you are Maori, and I would say if you're Maori and maybe Maori and like Palangi or the other ones, you can grow up in a country not knowing that no one goes to church. That's what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm not surprised that that lady that we kind of gave comments on regarding her Christian faith, she's getting backlash by her own Maori people. I'm not surprised because it's pretty evident that it's not going in the right way because even the social aspect of the Maori community is really not doing so well in the stats, in any of the stats, social well-being, even the physical health, all of that. And the number one blame they always blame at, it's never look within yourself. It's always the blame on the Paalangi or being colonized. So
Mhm.
I'm not surprised. That's why I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
So that's just my feedback on that. I don't know if you had anything.
So, well,
else.
I wanna walk through it so you can see here. Just let me show. I'm not going to go through the comments because I think I'll just give you a summary of the comments, and we can kind of do some responses because you'll see here. Well, I guess a lot of my comments are within these threads, right? Let's just pick one. Has 31 replies right here. Boom. Well, as you can see, we are making responses as we go, right? And some of the threads where we do respond, those are the threads that have the most amount of conversation, right? And I want to clear up a couple of things in the comments, and I want us to have this conversation. The idea that we're mocking Maoris, that was one thing that popped up. I don't know. I mean, I guess I can kind of see because the way the video was kind of chopped up and, there were some funny comments. That comment that came up is there's not that many real Maoris. And even if there were, they're not in the conversation. Guys, we're just having a good time. This is the live digital kava session. People can make jokes and we don't have to cry foul or act like, what do they call it? A microaggression, right? Or you need a safe space. Come on, guys. It's just some people make some funny comments and we're just having a good laugh with it. But this idea that we're trying to be disrespectful to the Maori is 100% incorrect. In fact, the whole segment was talking about a young Maori girl or woman, she's a woman, who was being attacked as not Maori because she has Christian faith. The segment was talking about, no, you can be Maori and have Christian faith. And actually, you could even make the argument that an important part of being Maori is having a faith. right? And we kind of made the argument that even some of the ancient Maoris had prophecies of this new religion coming, of these Palangis coming and having influence. But that was kind of like the first theme that I wanted to present, is being disrespectful and putting down Maoris. You know, I don't want to speak for you, Mr. Atearoa, but I don't think you were trying to be disrespectful, put down Maoris. But what was your thought?
No, and I think I kind of mentioned it earlier. It's just some of the discussions that need to be had, especially with the stuff, the social issues that, I've been living in New Zealand now for 7-8 years now, and I'm getting to see some of the problems, social problems, and I work in the social field sector. Just, it's a good discussion to have, because to me, I'm not hearing any conversations on what
about it. Yeah.
Polynesian. When I say Polynesian, I say Polynesian to include the Maori. What Polynesians, Maoris can do to improve the whole system, because they, overall, there's not enough. I don't know, everyone's different, but I'm just saying, most, you gotta be accountable. If I see a fellow Tongan not doing well, I feel somewhat accountable to say, if there's stuff that's going not going well, if there's some issues going on, and I see it going on, I'll kind of speak up and try to figure it out what's going on. But there's not
Offer a
enough.
solution, at least.
Offer solution. There's not enough inward looking. It's always outward looking and a blame. And this has been going on since the Treaty of Waitangi. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's not getting better. And I think it's easier to always fall on the same tactic, right? It's somebody else's fault, or a person that doesn't share the same culture as you to blame. But there needs to, that's all. And I'm just saying, we're just having that discussion, that there needs to be a lot more inward looking for solutions to solve the social problems that's probably happening. Because, to me, that's probably one thing, that's probably a lot of issues happening, is if people are attacking this woman because of her faith, maybe we need to bring faith a lot more to the Maori culture, or
To the
Maori
table.
people,
Yeah.
to the table. When you, like I said too, I think, I work in the state care, and in New Zealand, state care with this is the young people, the youth that get into state care because they've been abandoned by parents. Like, nobody's willing to take them in. So then the government takes the kids in. When you got over 70% of your Maori kids that are being
In state
represented
care?
in state care,
Wow.
that's a serious problem. And that's, to me, there's a boundary. You can't keep blaming the system or whatever. This is because this is generational. And when you keep having these generation issues keep repeating itself, there needs to be an inward looking at some solutions. And people, and I think it's for everybody. It's hard to be, if you're not accounting for yourself, it's hard to take some of the blame for it. But when you have stats like that, there needs to be a serious looking on what you can do better. And faith has been slowly being removed. A
Disintegrating.
lot of
Yeah.
faith has been slowly removed as not being a solution for many. This is just my opinion, from Maori families, that probably needs to bring it back to help. That's just from what I see. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No, 100%. I mean, and this is the same thing. We're by no means just picking on the Maoris. This just happens to be the discussion. Tonga is going through the drugs are an issue. And I do know that even within Tonga, it is the ministers amongst themselves are starting to say, we cannot say it's the government's problem or the government has to fix it. We, as the religious leaders, have to step up to the game, right, to the plate, and help bring solutions to the table. And that's one area that Tonga needs to work out as well. Another comment that usually came up is this, Masi. As mentioned in the description of the video, Northern Hemisphere boys, right? The other one was, if you probably never been to New Zealand, you don't know, you don't talk about New Zealand when you never been there, right? Then the other one's, oh, you Americans, you guys talking and you don't know anything about that. What's your response, Mussy, that to those some of those comments that you don't know what you're talking about? You've never been in New Zealand. You know, you shouldn't be talking about that.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say, right, Tua, already been to New Zealand, and I think that Maui has been to New Zealand on multiple occasions. I live here in New Zealand, so you know, we see the stuff what's going on. We're not just pulling this out of thin air and giving our opinions on. We see what's going on in the Maori community because we live here in New Zealand, and we give our honest thoughts. You know what the situation is going on, and that's what I would say. That's where it's coming from. We're not just speaking that we never came stood foot here many times. Like we have family that live in New Zealand, uncles that's kind of multiple uncles actually that live here in New Zealand,
Multi-generational in New Zealand. Yeah.
generational. So we're pretty familiar with how the lingo and the culture rose in Aotearoa. That's just
Well,
my
and I think also your background of criminal justice, your
Yeah.
degree, and then also working with the government and nonprofit or non-government organizations
Yes,
in
yes.
that space.
Yes.
So this
So-
is, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fair that you, like you said, you're not pulling this out of thin air.
Yes, and especially in my current role, working especially in government in this social development space kind of thing here in New Zealand, where I encounter a lot of the stats and social issues facing the people of New Zealand, and the stats just say over 70% of representation of Maori kids grow up in state care. That's the amount, and that's not a good sign for the
No.
future.
Another theme that pops up a lot, and I'll do some commentary on that one, Masi, is if you're not Maori, don't talk about it. Right?
Oh, that's yeah.
So I and this is what I think is interesting about that is okay, so you can only talk about something if you have genetic ties to that specific thing. That's a pretty boring life, man. You can't talk about anything else. You can't talk about Ukraine and Russia. You can't talk about America. You can't talk about Tonga, Samoa, Fiji. You can't talk about anything unless you're genetically tied to that topic. What a silly position to say, right? It's we live in a world of the internet now. Everyone can have a comment about everything. To say you can only make a comment about something. Now, granted, I'm not talking about I'm gonna go to the marae in the middle of those people and tell them what to do. Okay, now you can tell me that, right? You can tell me, Tua, this is not your place to come here and tell the Maoris how to do their cultural events. To say we can't just comment on it and have some observations, that seems kind of a silly position to take in my mind. And if that's the case, I guarantee you, if I followed the individuals who put that comment in, you're going to talk about American music or food at some point, right?
Mhm.
You're going to talk about
They
Pacific
eat
Islander
Kentucky.
information.
They eat Kentucky Fried Chicken as their favorite chicken. That is American franchise. That's
Yes,
brought to New
cultural
Zealand.
appropriation. Cultural appropriation right there. Right? I mean, it's just kind of silly. Like when I hear that, and here's another interesting word, Masi, that I kept seeing. And it's funny because these people who think this way, they use all the same words. This new word that I saw for the first time, colonesian. So it's the mix of colonization and Nesian, right? And I'm like, okay, this is a new word. Must be the woke signals in New Zealand. That's the word that they like. That was something that was interesting to me. Last one before we go into.
I have a quick comment on that one, Tua,
Go
just
ahead,
to kind of
Muzzy.
add to yours. Even though we're not Maori, we're just seeing here. But like, if let's just say if we're non-Maori, what's the closest group of people that maybe somebody can speak on Maori issue? It's a Polynesian because we're all in the Polynesian nation. So it's kind of like they're trying to create this boundary, like they're separate kind of thing. When they're saying only Maori is like, no, we're Polynesians. There's a lot of general stuff that we share in particular
Mhm.
in our culture, right? Every island kind of like we kind of mentioned with the earlier reaction with some of the Tongan history with the Hude and stuff, some little nuances and interpretation on that. But overall, in general, if you're gonna have some people that's gonna speak on maybe some of the issues, because we are the one Polynesian nation, um, idea that we're speaking as a Polynesian relative on some of the issues that we see
Exactly.
that's going on. So that's I'll just add on to what you were saying, Dua. On that.
Yeah. It's like that spoiled kid who's like, your parents tell you that the hard facts, and then the response is, if you don't live in my shoes, don't tell me what to do. I was like, Siana, I gave you your shoes. If it
I
wasn't for
gave
me,
you the
you
room.
wouldn't have shoes. You know,
That's funny.
I think it's just kind of unfortunate that, like you said, it's a challenge, and really this. And do you remember how Nani Trask is, Masi?
Yes, a Hawaiian activist, I believe.
Activist, right? So I was attending still at BYU at the time, and I took an anthropology class. And part of the requirement for this anthropology class was to go to a Polynesian summit of some sort, right? And we show up, it's at the University of Utah. And this is my first, I didn't even know what like these activists were, right? I think I was still like, I had just maybe come back from my mission.
Oh, okay. So
I
this
had
is
just
after
come back from, maybe it was like the first year from my mission.
Mm.
Because you got to remember, even in high school, in Tonga, really didn't get into activism. Even at Hawaii, when I went to high school in Hawaii, busy with school, sports, and then family stuff. Really didn't get exposed to this whole, you've been oppressed, you've been colonized, right? I didn't realize I was a Polynesian, as I learned here. And I show up, and I just thought it was weird. Like they had the Ute tribe there, and then they were presenting all the different the Ha'amoa, the Maoris, the Hawaiians were like doing all these things to recognize the indigenous people, which I thought was like, well, that's kind of cool. Okay, right. There's nothing wrong with that. The first time I felt like something weird was going on is when the Tongan delegation went up there, and they did stuff that I had never seen before, right? And they said, this is how the Tongans do it. Like they brought in mats and stuff, and then they put their faces together and did like that. Now I know it's more of a Maori thing, the hongi or whatever. And I was like, I don't remember doing anything like that in Tonga, but okay, all right. So we go through that whole thing, and then there's people talking. And then the keynote speaker is Haunani Trask, right?
Yeah.
And she opens up with these words. We need to teach our children who the enemy is. And the enemy is the United States of America. And I was like,
interested? Shocked.
Yeah. I was like, what? What is going on? And so she spends like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours just blasting. She's like, when I was in the airport in Hawaii, in Honolulu, and I see all the palangis, and I just wanted to off them, all of them, right? And I was just like, man, this lady's crazy. And so after she goes through her whole thing, I lift my hand up to ask her some questions, right? Because I just heard this whole thing. And so I asked her, I said, if Kamehameha had the most powerful army in the world, do you think Kamehameha would only have stayed within the Hawaiian Islands? Right? Because we all know in the hypothetical, if Kamehameha had the biggest army
Most
in the
powerful.
world, Hawaii would not be enough for Kamehameha. He would have gone outside, in my opinion. Right? And so I kind of bring that up to her. And then I also asked her, because this whole idea of colonization, right? And I said, did Kamehameha colonize all the other islands? Well, first off, her response was, I'm not going to answer a hypothetical. That's what
Okay.
she told me when I asked her, hey, if Kamehameha had the biggest and most powerful army, do you think he would have stayed? She goes, I don't want to answer hypotheticals. And I said, okay, here's my follow-up question. Did Kamehameha colonize all the Hawaiian Islands? Did he colonize them? Because under your definition is they were forced to accept Western things in Hawaii. Last I remember, the other Hawaiian Islands didn't line up saying, Kamehameha, please be our king.
Yeah.
He had to go and conquer them. He had to go and, quote unquote, colonize them. Right? And so that to me was the first time I got exposed to this idea, and I never heard of them. And within an hour and a half, I was like, I don't want to say a loser mentality, but I was like, this is not a healthy way to view the world and to approach it, because we're trying to identify all the weaknesses of human nature and tie it only to one side, not to recognize, no, we all have that type of human nature within us. And I think that is going to be, that's what I want us to kind of keep in mind to go into the next video, Mussy, because I think this video with the Maoriotis or whatever they're called is a little snippet of that reality.
Okay.
What if the Maoris were the most powerful army in the world? Right? And
Okay.
how do we think they would have behaved? But any thoughts on that before we go to the video?
No, I mean, you brought up a good idea, right? If, Kamehameha didn't just stop in the Big Island, he went in, I think from the Big Island, went to Maui, and then went to Oahu. And then, then he finally got to Kauai and kind of, I think that was the only island he didn't conquer by war.
Yeah, they just went in
warfare.
and said, yeah, we'll recognize you.
We'll recognize you. So, I mean, like, what you're trying to say, Tua, it's a natural human behavior. When somebody wants power, which is universal, you're going to use your resources and, let's just say, momentum. If you're already in the process of taking over the islands, let's just say he had the capability to go further, just like anyone who wants to conquer the world and other well-known like conquerors. I think of Alexander the Great, Caesar. When you're
They
in that
took it
momentum,
as far as they could go.
yes. So you're trying to just say, Tua, it's not like a them versus us versus them. It's just a natural human behavior. When you want power, you're gonna do it if you have the means to do it.
Yeah, and I think, and me personally, Mussy, this is one of the weaknesses of this idea of communism. They think that just because everybody shares everything, that the greed and the influence of people in power goes away. No, like we've seen in communism, the rich people still have access to stuff and control stuff, and the government, and then the poor people just suffer more. Does that mean capitalism is perfect? No, capitalism has its weaknesses, but it seems to work a little bit better than communism. So with that being said, I'm going to move us to this video. And this video stuck out to me because to me, this is a microcosm of what if the Maoris were the most powerful military force in the world, right? With the idea of, oh, the Westerners colonized us. They were so evil. They took everything from us, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying that what the West did was good. I'm just saying, let's look at it as if we were in their shoes, right? Because one of the things I told Haunani Trask is, I'm half white and I'm half Tongan. The white side, you've already kind of thrown that under the bus and kicked it to death as colonizers and evil. And I said, many in Polynesia viewed the Tongans as colonizers and oppressors because they had the Tongan Empire. So am I just purely a colonizer and a dirtbag because of that? But let's go to the video here and watch it, because I think it's very educational as a case study.
Rugged group of windswept islands on the edge of the world. A largely forgotten pacifist tribe known as the Moriori had the centuries-old sacred vow of non-violence put to the ultimate test when warriors from 2 tribes of Maori from the New Zealand mainland invaded, bringing 24 generations of unbroken peace to an abrupt and bloody end. Yet despite outnumbering the invaders over 2 to 1, the Moriori stood by their long-held vow and refused to fight back, instead allowing themselves to be killed, conquered and enslaved as their merciless enemies swept across the island unchallenged. This remarkable decision to stay true to their peaceful beliefs, even in self-defense, bringing the Moriori to the brink of extinction. The islands that make up the modern-day nation of New Zealand are thought to have remained completely untouched by humans until at some point in the early 1300s, when Polynesians crossed the ocean and settled the land. Their descendants became known as the Maori, however roughly 200 years after these first settlers arrived on the mainland.
Mr. Wonderful here. My friend Howard Mark.
I wanted to bring up something, Mussy, real quick and get your thoughts on while I pause this to work through the commercial break. Maybe one day we'll graduate from the commercial break. But who or what was in its prime between the 1300s and 1500s?
The Tuitonga. That was at its prime, right? So yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Looks like there was a lot of migration happening to Aotearoa during that. If that time period, if give or take, but that's when there was a lot of migration happening during that era.
A lot of people say that was the pinnacle, the height of the Tuitonga Empire. Right? We can make arguments, like you said, a few hundred years here or there, but the point is that is when the Maoris were going in there. That is at the height of the Tuitonga Empire, is during that time, right? And if the Tuitonga could find the little specks of islands throughout Polynesia, I'm pretty sure they could find New Zealand if they were exploring, right? So just kind of interesting. I thought that was an interesting kind of note when he was mentioning, oh yeah, the Maoris are thought to have come between the 13 and 1500s or 1200 and 1500. I was like, well, that's when the Tuitonga was at his prime. And actually, even if you listen to one of the tribes that he mentioned that goes to the Chatham Islands, they have the word Tonga in them as well. So just interesting.
Very interesting. Oh, are you playing it, Tua?
Oh, yes. Oh, is the sound still off? My bad.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not hearing it.
Yeah, let's go back just a little bit. Right here.
A group of islands, some 540 miles east of New Zealand. It's believed that these island settlers were most likely groups of Maori migrating over from the mainland. However, they could have also come independently to the islands from the same region as the original Maori migration. Despite sharing the same Polynesian ancestry as the Maori tribes who first settled in New Zealand, over time this later group of settlers developed a distinct culture and language of their own. Calling themselves the Moriori, the settlers were forced to adapt to their new island home and its much harsher environment, adaptations that called for a complete reorganization of their society. Known today as the Chatham Islands, the new home of the Moriori had barren soil and was much colder than the rest of New Zealand, making it...
What was that?
So it looks like, from what this video is saying, they had to adapt to a new island. So that's why I'm thinking the Morioris were kind of spread out, I'm assuming, throughout the 2 islands, the northern island and the southern island of Aotearoa. And it looks like they've kind of adapted because they were getting, let's just say, wiped out pretty much.
It could be.
And they kind of settled in this, because just for what the video is saying is settling in this, because that's my understanding, because I have kind of heard about the Morioris. They were kind of spread out through New Zealand, and then just, I think, because there is history with some of the smaller, more no structure people, and looks like the Polynesians were more of a dominant culture dominate agriculture structure in society, just kind of dominated the other people. And look, they had to kind of seclude themselves to the little islands here. But very interesting. My quick question would be, that's an interesting philosophy of not having a, is it not having a warfare mentality to defend themselves? I wonder if that's by choice or by culture. Because I'm just saying, um, some of the other history that we do know of, especially I think of the Menehune in Hawaii, kind of were there. They were kind of overpowered and stuff. But I don't know. I find that interesting that there was like no, at least some kind of self defense, or they just knew they were just going to be overpowered and they just kind of.
Well, that's what this story is very interesting, Mussy, because when the Maoris come to the Chatham Islands, they outnumbered them 2-1 or 3-1.
Yeah.
And so and they'll talk about it a little bit on how they developed this culture, which is very interesting, right? Obviously, a lot of our viewers and listeners know we're of the LDS Church, but there are stories in the Book of Mormon of people who choose to live that.
Not to bear arms anymore.
Yes, and even to the point of that, like this story is very similar to that story, Masi. As we listen to it,
it's unsuitable for farming. Isolated on the edge of the world from their Maori cousins, the Moriori were forced to sustain themselves as hunter-gatherers for hundreds of years, relying on the island's bountiful waters and avian wildlife for most of their food. This inability to grow a food surplus meant that the islands could only support a population of around 2,000 people living among 9 tribes, and according to Moriori oral tradition, the early years of the people's time on the islands was spent waging vicious intertribal warfare against one another over their new home's scarce resources. These destructive conflicts continued unabated and threatened to utterly annihilate their already fragile existence on the harsh islands as the population began to rapidly decline. However, around 1500 AD, a chief called Nunuku Wainua is said to have emerged. Disgusted by the violence he had seen, and fearful that doom was upon his people, the chief established a new moral code that forbid murder, cannibalism, and violence of all forms. Remarkably, he was somehow able to win the population over, get everyone to lay down their arms and stop fighting, and voluntarily agree to follow this new code. Almost overnight, war and conflict became a thing of the past, and the Moriori became one of the world's only pacifist cultures. Known as Nunuku's Law, this new philosophy sought to instead redirect and ritualize man's ingrained aggression, and introduced an unusual but remarkably effective form of conflict resolution. When disputes that could not be settled by peaceful negotiations arose, the two affected parties were permitted to engage in a tightly controlled contest that involved dueling with simple wooden staffs. At the first sign of blood, the combat would cease, and the dispute would be settled in favor of the man who drew first blood. In this way, physical conflict could be controlled in a way that stopped minor arguments.
To me, that's a pretty advanced way to resolve issues.
Very interesting. Yeah.
You know, where you just duke it out, and even then it's not a to the death, it's whoever draws first blood, they win the conflict. This is pretty elevated thinking. Like, this is interesting.
Very interesting. So they're saying, Tua, that this Moriori chief that came, what did you catch the name? Nuku something?
New Nuku.
New Nuku, when he became kind of like the paramount kind of chief of the Moriori kind of thing, he's the one that introduced this new concept. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like, that's pretty impressive. Like, to me, when I see that kind of behavior, I see some type of religious thing that's driving that, because that is looking beyond temporal things. That's looking beyond, like, just kind of how we talked about when the William Mariner observed the Tongans just before they would fight, and they would have family on the other side.
Yeah,
they would come together
funny,
and basically have a mini reunion talking with each other, enjoying each other's presence, and then right after that, all right, we got to go back and do our job, right? Like, to me, that is driven because they said, hey, we might die today, but we're going to live forever in Puloto, just because we're killing each other now, but we need to maintain the relationship because there is another life that we have to live through, and we got to maintain the relationship. Now, looking at the Morioris, they seem to have that same concept, at least to be like, you know what? There's something more important than the immediate resources right in front of us. That is an elevated way of thinking. That's not normal, if that makes sense. I don't
Very
think
interesting.
like this is what I think like academics think they can achieve with world peace. Academics think they can just, we have this great idea called communism, and everybody's going to share everything and do everything great, and the government's going to be perfect and give everyone what they need. No, everybody still be, if it's not inspired by something above this world and this life, then it always falls apart. And for the Morioris to achieve this, to me, there has to be a spiritual component to it. It's just my thoughts.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Escalating into something much more dangerous.
Before Java, I had the.
Geez.
Is that a commercial?
Always, commercial. Any thoughts, Masi, to carry us through the commercial break?
No, I'm just thinking like it's a unique kind of concept because having a code of not fighting, there is instances of that, and then there's also, it's interesting, right? Because if it's spiritually led, then that's that. But then it's kind of like there's other opportunities or like other instances of when you're spiritually led to fight to to
No, I
defend.
agree. I agree.
There's a thing like, man, it's just crazy because I kind of mentioned it before, Tua, right? Like, be interesting what Liliuokalani, the last kind of queen for Hawaii, during when the U.S. military troops came on the shore to kind
She
of,
conceded.
and she conceded, like, to much easier to see now. Like, man, it's better dying to fight to preserve what you could have, right, for your people. And then there's gonna be, of course, death. But like I always think, man, freedom is not free. But then like we have stories in the scriptures, the Book of Mormon, of like people just say they don't want to bear arms anymore. You can draw which one you can go with. They felt inspired. You can't argue that. They don't want to take up arms because they buried their weapons. That's if that's spiritually led, you do that because that you can't argue with being inspired spiritually to do something. But at the same time, does that scenario should carry across to other parts of different situations? Like, I don't know. It's just interesting, do it, because I always think of like, maybe it's because I do think this Moriori maybe had some, like I said, there's some connection with some of the people, because there is some stories of people that's existed in even in Hawaii maybe before the
The
Polynesians
Menehunes and
arrived.
stuff. Yeah.
And maybe there was a mix of that culture that Liliuokalani of Hawaii, the Queen of Hawaii, maybe was more like that, more of a passive behavior of just, not warfare was not a thing. But what it is today, would you change your mind? Of course, because we know what it is today. But I'm just always, I always take the fact that defending yourself, it's always better trying to defend yourself, because the outcome's going to happen if you win or lose. Because I still believe what I know now. If Hawaii was able to overcome that initial U.S. military force during that time, I don't think the U.S. would have the political will to keep sending military over, and they would have just said, just let it,
It was
whatever
opportunistic, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, opportunistic, and also, that's a lot of resources. I'm just thinking, guys in DC, that's a lot of resources to keep sending if they really wanted Hawaii. But and plus there's a lot of advantage you could have had. Hawaii's already a recognized independent state. You could have maybe draw some, kind of like what Tonga did. Having the British treaty with the British Empire, some kind of treaty, because Hawaii was already recognized as an independent country. There's a
Nation.
lot of ways, but but in order to do that, you needed that initial order from your monarch to say fight, so you can figure out the rest. But I don't know. It could have been a passive behavior, just like the Moriori. What I see here is a very passive, cultural like people. I don't know. I'm just
No,
kind of
yeah. My
thinking out
thoughts.
loud.
My thoughts on that, Masi, is whether you fight or surrender, it's hard because sometimes, and these guys were unusual in the sense that they had the majority, right? They were like 2 to 3 times more than the Maoris who came. So that's interesting. That to me is sometimes when God tells you to fight, there's only 2 of you and thousands of them. That's hard to do anyway, right? To still have that faith. So I believe sometimes God will tell you to fight. Sometimes he'll tell you to run. Sometimes he'll just say, hold around and I'll take care of it. In regards to Hawaii, I think there may be some backing to your thought, because on the US maybe not even really actively going after Hawaii, but it just presented itself, so they took it. It's just like Texas. When Texas was first fighting against Mexico,
Mexican army.
they asked America, come and annex us and take over us. And what did America say? Said no.
And that was the backyard. That's the backyard.
Yes.
In the, you know what I mean? Imagine going to the other side of the continent and then going from there through the ocean to try to get what you want of little islands.
Yeah.
So,
and then what happened? Texas becomes its own country, and then America says, okay,
that,
if you want to join, okay.
But before that, I won't forget my experience, and that's why I was grateful for going through the Alamo. There was a lot of lives that were lost in order for Texas to achieve what it is now today, which is a very proud state. So that's what I'm saying. There was a lot of that's how I see Hawaii would have gone through. There would have been a lot of Hawaiian lives lost, but you never know. It's it could have been something like what Texas. But like I said, in order for Texas to achieve that, because the U.S. said they wouldn't come and help, there a lot of people knew that they were gonna die with the whole standoff, for the Alamo.
Just like the Alamo. They said
the
they
Alamo.
knew. If you stay, you're gonna die. And a lot of guys like Davy Crockett, these are not like some unknown people. Some very well-known American characters stayed behind, and they were killed at the Alamo.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Very interesting.
We got the sound going. Let me know if you don't hear the sound. The splendid isolation of the Moriori was about to come to an end. In 1791, a British ship was blown off course and made landfall at one of the Chatham Islands. A tense first contact followed by a tragic misunderstanding resulted in a Moriori man being shot dead. However, the Moriori refused to retaliate and stuck to their oath of non-violence. Relations with the British were quickly mended. However, an even greater threat from the mainland was about to arrive. The Maori were a proud, warlike people who had no such qualms about the use of force. The arrival of the British in Maori lands was treated with a healthy dose of suspicion and often outright hostility. However, during the early skirmishes with the newcomers, Maori warriors quickly recognized the value of European firearms. A massive arms race followed as Maori tribes across New Zealand scrambled to obtain gunpowder weapons as quickly as they could, forcing their rivals and neighbours to do the same, or risk falling behind and ending up at a massive disadvantage. Fueled by the introduction of these new weapons, ancient feuds, rivalries, and conflicts were reignited in over 1,000 devastating intertribal conflicts known as the Musket Wars. In the unfolding chaos, countless Maori tribes were subjugated, utterly wiped out, or driven off their lands, while many more migrated away from the areas most vulnerable to raids, leaving entire swathes of land depopulated, as it was simply too risky to set up a permanent settlement there. Two such tribes who had been driven off their homelands on the North Island of New Zealand were the Tama and Mutunga. The displaced survivors settled around Wellington Harbour, where they came into contact with sailors and traders who told them tales of a nearby group of islands that were said to be rich in seafood, untouched by war, and more importantly occupied by people who refused to fight. The islands were ripe for conquest. On the 19th of November 1835, 500 of the displaced Maori around Wellington Harbour hijacked a British ship
new
and
style.
forced the captain to take them to the Chatham Islands along with their guns, clubs and axes, and 78 tons of potatoes for planting. This was not intended to be just a raid, but a full-scale and permanent conquest. The 500-mile voyage had left the Maori invasion force greatly weakened, and by the time they made landfall on the islands, they were in no condition to fight.
This Japanese trick with...
So,
what do you think, Dor? What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's really interesting to me to just understand the scale of the wars that were going on amongst the Maori. Like, this is like, it's hard for me to see that this is something that's happened as always the case, because you just run out of people at some point, right? Like even Kamehameha, when they were fighting, they were running out of food, and he actually started to tell people, okay, stop fighting. We got to grow food so we can eat, so people don't die. And even to the point that it seemed like even the Maoris didn't know that the Chatham Islands existed. Right? It took the Europeans to tell them, like, hey, there's this little island 500 miles away. Nobody seems to know about. And it didn't seem like the Maoris knew anything about it. And then I also find it interesting that after a 500-mile trip, they were dying, starving. I don't know. Something else might have been happening. Like, why would you be these great navigators, and a 500-mile trip almost kills you? Maybe something happened. I don't know.
No, interesting. And I think the constant fighting must have been because, we all know that Aotearoa was the last place to settle by Polynesians. And because we're having different tribes, well, we can say the different tribes were from different parts of the islands. Maybe they were having feud back then. They just bring some extended family and they continue the feud in New Zealand for, maybe supremacy, because this was a new kind of land. And it was trying to establish the new authority kind of thing. I mean, that could probably explain the constant warfare at pretty high costs, even to their own population,
Yeah. And it's just kind of interesting to see. I wonder what would have led to that type of chaos, because they were such a, I guess in terms of Polynesian quote unquote history, they were very young, right?
Super young.
And this is the chaos. I wonder what drove that. Is it because the empire, they were settled so late, but then contact with the capital of the empire disintegrated, and so it dissolved into this type of chaos? I don't know. I'm just trying to think what could have driven that.
I'm thinking because you're talking about the Tuitonga stability, and I feel like there was a lot of people in the Polynesian nation. So New Zealand, with the size of land and the amount of new conquest to have people populate there, and because it's a relatively new land, it's a little bit chaotic to maybe authority wise, maybe it wasn't being enforced too many times. I can't see many. If you grew up in the Polynesian nation, going to a much colder climate, and probably with the whole food too, probably it took a little bit while to also adapt to the new kind of climate, because some oral histories that they Polynesian navigators have found New Zealand, Aotearoa, a while ago, but they just never really settled. It was like stop, pick up some moa, because the moa there were were huge and stuff. But like this time, kind of much later, we're talking about massive migration to New Zealand. This is just what I'm thinking. Going there with big, with a good amount of people, and then maybe authority wasn't being exercised to kind of control what was going on. It was kind of like each certain island groups kind of for themselves to establish supremacy, and almost like a tui kind of thing, to be a tui out there kind of thing. That's what it seems like that it wanted.
Yeah.
Was kind of happening instead of the traditional way of the toka tufa with who just you
Structured family ties and
you structure family ties and you get your highest woman to have a child with a tuitonga, and that descendant will become like the authority. It looks like that wasn't exercised in
No.
Aotearoa because we're talking about much younger population here. It was more like everyone fend for themselves kind of thing. It was almost like a chaos.
Well, and I
chaotic
think
structure.
I wonder if, let's just pull on that string a little bit before we come back to the video, because that's what really sticks out to me. It's the level of the chaos, and that doesn't seem to fit with the Tuitonga Empire and how things are done, right? It doesn't seem to fit. And then you look at it at a lot of the oral history seems to be tied to the Cook Islands, right? Like they say, they even have names of boats that came from the Cook Island and stuff. Is there a possibility, and I'm just spitballing here, is it a possibility that the Tuitonga would go and visit New Zealand, but they never decided to establish a settlement? But it is this migration for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason was to come from the Cook Islands. And you bring in this large amount of people on like what? I saw this one Cook Island guy. He said, people only name like 12 of the vacas or whatever, 8 or 12 of them. But he says there were up to 50 of them that came from the Cook Islands, but that only of the 12 that are remembered. If you bring that amount of people without structure and government and leadership, this is what could potentially happen. You have little factions, little groups that are not unified under a single leadership, who are not unified by the same religion, the same culture. And when I say culture, it's specific ways of behaving, right? And protocols. Maybe that's something to consider, that maybe it wasn't a quote unquote authorized Tuitonga settlement. I don't know. I'm just out loud because something led to this chaos. We can look at it at Tonga. What happened was, the stability of the Tuitonga with the assassinations and the rivals of different island groups, like the Uvea people, Tuitonga, who came from Uvea, was assassinated by Takalaua, and that's why they came and assassinated him. It's when the structure falls apart, then chaos happens. Luckily, Kaulufo Nuafekai was able to reestablish structure, but it took a crazy move like, okay, Tuitonga is going to give up all administrative, political, and military power, right? He's going to give it away to someone else. The Tuitonga is only going to focus on spiritual or soft power, right? And that new adaptation led to stability for hundreds to thousands of years after the fact. I don't know. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah, good point.
All right, let's come back here to the poor Maorioris who don't know what's coming for them.
In a vulnerable position, they most likely concealed their true intentions during a first tense contact with the Moriori, who are said to have welcomed the mysterious newcomers and even helped nurse them back to health, unaware of the terrible calamity that was about to befall them. Yet as the strength of the Maori arrivals returned, they wasted no time in revealing just why they had come to the Chatham Islands. Maori war parties began moving through the islands and ritually claiming the land, all Moriori were to be vassals, either enslaved for life or killed as part of the claiming ritual. Conflict had come to the islands for the first time in 24 generations. Shocked by the brazen hostility of the newcomers, the Moriori held an emergency council where they debated how to respond. Their future hung in the balance. The younger, more headstrong members of the council were keen to fight back. After all, they outnumbered the invaders over 2-1 and could destroy them in a single, all-out strike. However, the council elders argued that the sacred law of non-violence was a moral imperative and should not be broken under any circumstances. The elders...
Why would you believe that the non-violence is a moral imperative that should not be broken unless you believe that there was something greater after this life? If you just thought, oh, when I die here, that's it, you wouldn't have this moral imperative to be willing to sacrifice this life. That's why I feel like it had to be driven by some kind of, maybe the guy that they say is a chief is more of a prophet rather than a chief.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, remember, Tonga was not really exposed to a lot of the violence because of the stability of the Tu'i-Tonga. And remember, a lot of the entertainment or like young men who wanted just to be, be a little, just like young men. When you're a young man,
full of testosterone.
You want to beat up some people for the sake of beating up some people, just for like little things that irritate. But because there was so much peace in Tonga, some looks like Fiji. It reminds me a little bit like Fiji. Tua seems to be. They would send the warriors, some of the send with the Tongan warriors to go, and it's almost like a playground, and like what you said, kind of like have experienced warfare, because it seems like Fiji was the same way, kind of like New Zealand for a little bit. It was where you go and just because you have a because Fiji was like a little different group, so it was kind of unstructured kind of thing. Little districts here and there. It does sound like, now that I'm thinking about it in this discussion, Tua, New Zealand, this is nothing new in New Zealand. You can maybe the scale, but the whole fighting and stuff, Fiji was about the same way too until the British colonized them, pretty much, So that's what I would say. That's what I would say, Tua. It's kind of like a Fiji thing, but just happening in Aotearoa, with the amount of warfare, and looks like a playground to kind of experience warfare at a high scale.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting because there's a big difference between the Morioris and the Maoris. Apparently, there's a huge difference, and it's almost like you could say that the Morioris are more closer to what the Tu'i-Tonga setup would be. I don't know. Just thinking out loud.
His argument won the day. The consequences of this decision would be cataclysmic. Although the Moriori Council had rejected the idea of defending themselves, the Maori interpreted their enemy's secretive meeting as a prelude to a counterattack. In Maori culture, such a meeting would have almost certainly been followed by all-out war. Believing that the Moriori were about to organize and gather their strength, the Maori launched what they saw as a preemptive strike. In the following days, some 300 Moriori are thought to have been ritually killed to cement the Maori claim on the islands, and within a month, a second group of over 400 Maori had arrived to bolster the invasion force and settle the land. For the Maori invaders, the conquest was effortless. They had come from a world of intertribal warfare that birthed potent warriors who were veterans of countless battles. Men who had been fighting all their life were slaying an enemy who had no experience in warfare. In the eyes of the Maori, conquest through force was not only normal, but honorable, and so the Moriori decision not to fight back could very well have been misinterpreted as cowardice. The Maori believed that only enemies who were brave deserved respect. Those who ran away and hid were worthy only of contempt. For such a warrior culture, the pacifism of the Moriori was not something to be admired. Some historians have suggested that this belief that the Moriori were cowards could have spurred the Maori on to act with even more brutality than normal. As they rampaged across the islands, the Maori killed and enslaved whomever they pleased, allegedly even roasting some prisoners alive. or impaling them along the beach on huge wooden stakes.
See, when you are the most powerful thing around, don't make it sound like our ancestors, they did a lot of great things, but they were human beings. Sometimes they did things because they could.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, too, like, did the Morioris have any idea they could have saved maybe their people if they were any connection, if they even see if they had any idea of maybe the Tuitonga, going to the Tuitonga, having some kind of ties, because I feel like, I don't know, they could have done some other ways. I don't know, unless, like we said, there is stories in the scriptures of people laying down their arms, but like, I'm just thinking you could have saved your. And that's the thing, if they were, Morioris, seems like they were part. Well, that's the thing, are they part of the Polynesian nation, to say, Tua, kind of thing?
That's interesting. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like they have a lot of Polynesian DNA.
I mean, their features kind of look Polynesian to me. So if they were Polynesian, they could have sailed to the center of the Polynesian nation to receive some kind of help. Because I mean, instead of being slaughtered that way, because the obviously the Maoris during that time just thought these were, just kind of low classless, not fight back, passive people. So I don't know. I don't know. That's what I'm trying to understand. It's an interesting history, the Morioris.
Well, and that's the thing is, once again, the reason why I think this is a instructive exercise is we are seeing, granted, these two tribes can't represent every Maori tribe out there, but they were being killed by all the other Maoris. So all the other Maoris were of the same kind of perspective. But this is a potential, case study of what if the Maoris were the most powerful military force on the planet, right? So sounds like to me they would have done just what the Western.
If they were, they would have taken over all. They would have probably taken over all the Polynesian nation and then go from there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, obviously they were there to, establish supremacy, kind of like a Fiji kind of thing. But like what you said, it's human behavior when you want power because you want to do everything your way. You don't want to be told by somebody else to do things a different way.
Yeah, not 100%. Quick question here from Hakau Pikula. He says, you guys see the Apple movie coming out of the unification of the Hawaiian Islands with the colonizers? Yeah, I've seen it with Jason Momoa. I think it's called like Chief of War. And it's not
really?
Yeah, it's going to be on Apple TV or whatever the streaming service is. And it's not Kamehameha who's the primary character. It's like one of his right hand or powerful chiefs perspective that it's coming out of.
Oh, very interesting. And I wonder, and this is like a full-on movie, or you think it'll be breakdown like series?
No, it's a series.
I don't know
It's a
too
series.
Much.
It's a series.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, I pulled up something just on the Morioris, right? So the oral history. Moriori oral traditions provide a rich account of their origins, blending mythology and historical narratives. Number one, initial settlement and divine origins. Moriori traditions hold that their ancestors, referred to as the Hamata, were the first inhabitants of Rekohu, described as Norohunuake, sprung from the earth, are descendants of the gods, specifically Rongomai Whenua. The creation story tells of Rangi, the heavens, and Papa the earth, dwelling in darkness until Rangitokona, a spirit, separated them, propping up the heavens with pillars. This is oddly similar to the creation account, believe it or not, in my mind. This mythological framework suggests a deep spiritual connection to the land, with the Hamata acting as lawgivers and keepers of knowledge. Some traditions indicate the islands were already populated by these Hamata when later voyagers arrived, suggesting an ancient presence predating recorded migrations.
They sound Polynesians to me, Tua.
Yes,
With
yes.
some of their kind of own language. So interesting.
Migration from Polynesia and New Zealand. Oral accounts record that the Moriori arrived in the Chatham Islands around 1500 AD, likely from the New Zealand mainland during a period coinciding with the shift from archaic to classic Maori culture. These settlers are believed to have originated from eastern Polynesia, like the Maori, possibly via New Zealand.
Yeah, that's the history I was telling you, Tua, that from what I understand,
From
they were
mainland
in
to the Chatham Islands.
Yes, the Chatham Islands were like their last resort kind of thing.
So it says a key figure of the Moriori tradition is Kahu, captain of the Tane canoe who arrived from Hawaii, the Polynesian homeland. This once again, Waihi. Kahu is credited with finding Rekohu, uniting its disparate parts and anchoring the islands in their current positions. He attempted to plant Fernroot and Kumara, but the latter failed due to the island's colder climate. In some accounts, Kahu met two inhabitants, Kahuti and Te Akaroa, at Kaingaroa, indicating prior settlement. Interesting. Okay. So it could have been, they seem to be a mixture of pre-Polynesian settlement and Polynesians. Okay. Interesting. We'll
Yeah,
come here.
very interesting. Very interesting history. The Moriori probably needs to be talked about a lot more in the Polynesian kind of sphere because there's, I haven't heard too much about Moriori history.
Oh, it looks like some people say it's a movie, Masi, not a series. The one with Jason Momoa. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Okay.
I thought it was a series, but it could be a movie. So
pretty cool.
Every month.
All right, pretty cool. Now we have another commercial. Let's see here. I thought the creation account that they were kind of mentioning was kind of unusually similar to the Christian. You know, water and earth being separated. Olives
That's interesting.
holding it up. I thought that's unusually similar to Christian. Like I said, like it seems like these people were way more spiritual than the other Maoris.
Well, it's interesting, Tua, because we talk about the Lotumua being the Lotumua of the traditional religion. And it seems like these guys were there during the old traditional
and were more strict
religion.
to the older religion.
We're strict to the older religion. But there is cases like even when Tauvahau went to all the forts, kind of cleansing because there were parts of the Polynesian nation that were worshiping their ancestors. And it looks like this new migration of Polynesian from outer islands from Aotearoa were coming to New Zealand more of a worshiping your ancestors kind of thing, of that whole, pretty much your mortal reliance on your mortal strength, being fearless. That's more of a natural man belief kind of thing. So, it's interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, it's very, very possible.
I can't hear the sound, Dua. Is it going?
Oh. Once again, technical difficulties.
Oh, good.
Stakes. Moriori sacred sites were intentionally desecrated to humiliate the defeated and demonstrate Maori dominance as an island-wide manhunt began. the Maori warriors meticulously searched through every bush, hole, and crevice in their quest to capture every last man, woman, and child on the island.
It's pretty
In the opening
ruthless.
days of the invasion, 300 Moriori are thought to have been killed, while the rest of the island's population were enslaved. However, in the aftermath of the conquest, the death count would continue to rise. As slaves, the Moriori were forbidden to speak their own language, get married, or have children. Husbands were separated.
Doesn't that sound familiar? Not allowed to speak your language, not allowed to do certain things, lose all your land, take the kids away from the parents. Doesn't that sound familiar to what happened to certain groups?
Well, and it's the funny thing is because we always you see even in Europe with the English, even just fighting within with the Welsh and the Scottish, that was the thing they would do. They would go and like keep fighting, and there was no thing. But when they took over towns, they will kill all the men, and then you just have future generation with have
mixed.
kids with the women, yeah, and then their kids just end up being English, and then you don't have to retake that place again because they're gonna feel more English with the new
Yeah.
population. So I mean, it's interesting. It's you can take this in
Human
a
nature.
domestic thing. It's human nature, right?
Yeah. And this, I mean, I hope everyone kind of understands the reason why we're kind of looking at this is, what if the Maoris were the most powerful? And this applies to if Marietoa was the most powerful military, if Kamehameha was the most powerful military, if Tatu'i Tonga, right? This doesn't matter who it is. They all would have behaved this way in many instances.
Well, Tua, that's funny, right? And then if you have somebody that has the military capability, I'm telling you, the Tuitonga is gonna say, you know what? Maybe I'm gonna have to put this spiritual role on the side and go back to like a Kalufo Nuafekai. Go back full on military
Shake it up.
and the
Shake it up.
spiritual and just shake it. I'm just saying, it's just interesting. If the Tuitonga felt like there was like, all right, I'm losing, what's going on? Let's just say not like a Laufiri Tonga. This is more like an inter-Polynesian dispute.
Yeah.
If a certain part of the outer reach of the empire was building like a force, and they're like, why do we have to follow what the Tuitonga does? We build our own military, we'll overtake. I'm telling you, maybe the Tuitonga is like, okay, I'm gonna take a break from being the spiritual
Sabbatical
leader.
from the church.
I'm feeling the spiritual inspiration to go bloodthirst a little bit. Go bloodthirst a little bit and have I'm just saying, who knows? Maybe that did exist in some parts in the Tuitonga history. It's so
Hey, Masi,
the Tuitonga era is so long. Who knows that maybe happened
yeah.
that we don't know.
We even know of certain popes. The Pope go from doing mass to leading an army to war.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Like I heard some people say all wars are religious. All politics is religious. I think we severely underestimate how much religion, I think it's ingrained in our DNA. We can't get around it. And we just express it in different ways, right? Everyone's trying to find a way to express the religion that we have. Science, government, right? Like those are other people think like, oh, I just believe in the government, or I just believe in that. Trust me, that will become your religion. All religion is what moral code do I put as the highest? That's your religion. And everyone has a God. What you think is the most important thing, that's your God. We can't escape it. We can't escape being religious. We can't escape believing in a God. We may have different thoughts on the religion and different thoughts on what is the God, but we all have it within us.
Separated from wives, and children were taken from parents.
See?
They were forced to endure constant hard labor in terrible conditions, with one European visitor to the island later commenting on how the slaves' back were blistered, their bodies emaciated, and their lungs diseased. Their suffering was so immense that he considered death a blessing. Although the islands had been annexed by the colonial New Zealand government in 1842, it would take 20 years before they finally intervened and imposed New Zealand law, ending slavery.
What, Masi?
No, in the Chatham Islands, the kind of last place for the Moriori, I see Waitangi. So they're having maybe the new, the new conquerors.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, rename. It's just funny. It's such a Polynesian thing. You go new places and then they rename certain
Rename
places.
from where you come from.
Yeah, I just find that very interesting. So this sounds like a very older Polynesian people that settled, and then the newer kind of like, let's just say, the newer generation coming in and just saying, the old stuff boring.
Yeah.
We're gonna take over, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's old news. This is the new school. Old
Yeah.
school is old, new school is here.
It would take 20 years before they finally intervened and imposed New Zealand law, ending slavery and giving the surviving Moriori the same rights and privileges as everyone else in the country. Yet for the Moriori, this intervention had come far too late. 30 years of conquest and slavery had reduced their population from 2,000 in 1835 to only 100 by the time they were freed. However, even now, the fight was not over. After 8 years of petitioning the government for justice, in 1870 a native land court was established to adjudicate the competing Moriori and Maori claims on the land. However, incredibly, the judge ruled in favor of the Maori, awarding them 97% of the Chatham Islands land. The court was forced to apply a rule established in 1840, which required judges to honour circumstances as they were at the time of the British annexation of New Zealand. As the Maori had conquered the islands 5 years before the British officially annexed New Zealand, the Maori claims were upheld. For the Moriori, this decision was a final, soul-crushing defeat, and many assumed that they would never recover. However, although the last pure-blooded Moriori died in 1933, many mixed descendants still live on the Chatham Islands today, with a 2001 New Zealand census showing 600 people identifying themselves as Moriori, carrying forth the legacy of a people who refused to abandon their principles in the face of unimaginable brutality and suffering. I hope you...
Marie.
Very interesting. Learn something today, Tua.
Very, very interesting. Right?
Mm.
So, once again, I'll have this as my closing remarks. We won't even get to the other video. We'll visit the other video on another episode. We have to be very, very careful, like you said, Masi, in using the default temptation of blaming others for our situation. That's not to say bad things happened. That's not to say that the bad things that happened disadvantage us. But it seems to be from observation that you have to let go in order to progress. And if you don't let go of it and move on, you get stuck. And when you get stuck, it's very difficult to have good things come your way, right? It's very difficult to progress, to achieve your goals, to progress, to be a contributor to your people, to your family, when you're preoccupied with the past, to the extent that you say, this is why I can't do anything. This is why I can't be successful. This, right? Like, you're always pointing at something rather than saying, you know what can I do? What do I have in front of me? And make those conscious choices. And I think this is an important conversation to have, because our natural temptation, and I have it, and I think everyone has it, is it's easier to blame someone else for your challenges and the reasons why you can't achieve stuff. But it doesn't help you, your community, or your family to think in that way. And this is something I think our ancestors have shown us by the great history, the great culture that they've given to each and every one of us. And we really have to know that our ancestors gave us everything we need to be successful, right? And we really just have to take ownership of that. And the other thing too is we're all human beings. We can't just look at the West and say, "Oh, it's the West's fault. They did some mistakes. They did some terrible stuff." But don't lie to yourself and say if you were the one in charge, you would have done anything different. I don't know if that's necessarily true. As we can see here, the poor Moriotis lost everything under the Maoris coming over and taking over. And till to this day, you could make the argument the Maoris destroyed the Moriotis because they're pretty much gone. Right?
Yeah.
There's only a few hundred of them.
Land wise, and just the rest of their population with the recent
Exactly.
ruling, right?
Yeah. So with that, that's my closing thoughts. Masi, you want to close us out for the live digital kava session for today?
Yes, Tua, you mentioned earlier, viewership has been very tremendous on the Polynesianized broadcast. We appreciate all our viewers and followers. Thank you for always following and sharing the content. We appreciate you guys. You know, what I learned from this episode, Tua, there's the natural man for power. If
Is
you
for
want to
real.
pursue power, is for real. It's not a ethnic thing. It's not a race thing. It's nothing that you can grasp physically or virtually. It's something. It's an ideological idea that you wanna. It's a thing that you want to take power, an idea to conquer. You're gonna do everything you can with the resources that you do have. If you do have the capability to do it, you're gonna exercise it. So that this carries to all over the world. That if you want power, you're gonna do whatever it takes to achieve that power, to be the dominant person, and your followers to make them dominant over another group of people. So, this is a case that we went through here. I don't think many of the Polynesian nation do understand the history of the Moriori. So it's good that we kind of touch through it. I say the Moriori are Polynesians, just some of that feature. That last Moriori guy, that's like, dude, I see
The
that.
full-blooded one, he looked like a straight
Yeah,
up Polynesian.
straight up Polynesian, or somebody I see from Mua or somewhere in Hawaii.
Sydney at the year, right?
Somebody I see from Mua or somewhere in Homa or somewhere, who knows, that's sitting around just chilling, or somebody at the farm in Uta or something. Like, these seems like they were Polynesian people that went to Aotearoa much earlier than much recent Maori migration of Polynesians that come. So what I learned from this episode: when people want power, they're gonna do everything to achieve it if they have the capability. Doesn't matter what race you are. So just the questions we always leave for everyone, and at the end of every live digital kava session on the Polynesianized podcast: stay curious and ask the hard questions. Ofatu, until the next one.
Peace.
Alo.